I'm Chairperson Jerry Robinson. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everyone who is joining us tonight in person on Boston City TV and on Zoom. I'm going to ask everyone here in the chamber to please turn off the volume on your laptops or other devices so it does not interfere with the audio for tonight's meeting. Thank you for your cooperation. Tonight's meeting documents are posted on the committee's webpage, bostonpublicschools.org/school committee, under the August 28th meeting link. For those joining us in person, you can access the meeting documents by scanning the QR code that's posted by the doors. The meeting documents have been translated into all of the major BPS languages. Any translations that are not ready prior to the start of the meeting will be posted as soon as they are finalized. The meeting will be rebroadcast on Boston City TV and posted on the school committee's webpage and on YouTube. The recording will be available in all of the BPS languages. The committee is pleased to offer live simultaneous interpretation virtually in Spanish, Haitian Creole, Cape Verdeano, Cantonese, Mandarin, Vietnamese, and American Sign Language. The Zoom interpretation feature has been activated. Zoom participants should click the globe icon at the bottom of your screen to select your language preference. I'd like to remind everyone to speak at a slower pace to assist our interpreters. Before we start, I'd like to introduce Ms. Karen Sullivan, our new school committee coordinator. She comes to us with a background in the special education department and will be a great asset to our team. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Sullivan. Karen, just want to stand so people can see it. We will begin the meeting with the approval of minutes. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the July 17th and August 19th, 2024 school committee meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Is there any objection to approving the motion by unanimous consent? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. We will now move on to the superintendent report. I present to you our superintendent, Mary Skipper.
Thank you, Chair. I'm excited to talk tonight about the district's preparations for the start of the 24-25 school year. As you know, we will welcome our students in grades 1 through 12 back to school on Thursday, September 5th. And then K0, K1, and K2 students will join us on Monday, September 9th. I know I speak for the entire district, educators, all of our principals and leaders, to just say we're thrilled to have our students back. We can't wait. We just wrapped up an incredible summer of BPS programming. Summer 2024 truly was the best summer ever, as BPS hosted approximately 14,000 students who engaged in a variety of enriching and fun programs, including fifth quarter, extended school year, and the exam school initiative, just to name a few. I had the pleasure of seeing firsthand the exciting and inspiring learning experiences that our students enjoyed this summer. A personal highlight was sailing in the harbor with students in the Courageous Sailing Program, where the mayor and I were their passengers. We will provide you with a full report of the summer 2024 at our upcoming meeting this fall. Earlier this month, we held the annual August Leadership Institute, which we lovingly call ALI, in the beautiful space of the Boston Arts Academy. This annual gathering, which has been happening since 1996, and I do remember the first one, brings our school leaders together to reconnect and prepare for the year ahead. This year, we focused with our school leaders around using data to inform instruction, as well as inclusive education. It was a huge success, and I want to personally thank Leslie Ryan Miller, Nick Brooks, Christine Cronin, Pauline Laguerre White, Jeff Rose, as well as our entire ILT district instructional leadership team from the academics division for their work in planning the event and for everyone who participated. Last week, we welcomed 200 new teachers at our New Teacher Institute, where our new educators had the opportunity to learn key content, build community, and gain information about the resources and supports available to help them have a successful first year in the BPS. Eric Berg, the BTU president, joined me in welcoming all of our new educators into the BPS family. Both events were full of positive energy and enthusiasm, and I'm confident going into the school year, this is going to be a great one and that we're ready for day one. Tonight, I'd like to walk through some of our preparations. We're focused on three major categories: family and community engagement, academics and student support, and operations and facilities. Members of my team are also here tonight to answer questions the committee may have. Dr. Ana Tavares, our Deputy Superintendent of Equity, Community, and Family Advancement, Dr. Linda Chen, Senior Deputy Superintendent of Academics, and Dr. Sam DePina, Deputy Superintendent of Operations. I'm going to begin with the family and community engagement pieces. Last night, we held our annual back to school webinar for families and caregivers on the direction of Dr. Tavares and Chief of Community Engagement, Miriam Ortiz. Mayor Wu, Chair Robinson, and all of the BPS deputies welcomed more than 800 participants, 800 via Zoom. Between the live Q&A and the Zoom chat, the BPS team answered over 350 questions. The interactive meeting included valuable information on how to prepare children for the first day, who to reach out to with questions, and where to turn to for support. The webinar was an opportunity for students and families to hear directly from me and my team about the upcoming year, as well as answer questions about our district and the first day of school. Interpretation services were provided in 10 languages, and I want to send a special thank you to the parent leaders who supported the BPS team by sharing their personal experiences and wisdom getting their own children ready for school. We had parent leader William Tabb from Tech Boston, Nadine Modet from the Mattahunt, Winship parent Elizabeth Ovadedo, Winship parent Vianney Dela Cruz. All of them just added so much to the conversation, and I know reassured parents who were in the meeting that they'll be ready for the first day of school. According to our BPS welcoming services, we have a total of 50,603 students who are enrolled in BPS for the school year 24-25 as of yesterday, August 27th. As of today, 2,351 new registrations have been completed. Just a small note, but some of those, if they're K0, K1, where there's no seat available, they ultimately may not be assigned, but they are part of the registration process. We continue to work through the wait lists, and we've called more than 500 students to date. Waitlist calls and emails continue to go out twice a week as seats become available. We'll continue to call students off the wait list as seats become available until the wait list expires. And that's November 30th for grades 1 to 12 and January 31st for K0 to K2. A final enrollment number will be available later this fall, and we'll share that data with you at a future meeting. Over the next several weeks, we tend to have a lot more registrations coming in, so those numbers will grow is our anticipation. I'm also excited to share some new improvements to language access in our district. Translate Live devices will be at every school welcome center, as well as at community events. The devices will offer an immediate, live, and two-way communication in more than 200 languages. And the team's working to schedule a demo for members at a future meeting. The BPS helpline will continue to support BPS families this year. The helpline recorded more than 31,000 total touch points during last year. These would include phone calls, emails, and walk-ins. We're going into the third year with the helpline team in place, and we continue to get great feedback from families that they now have one entry point to get questions or concerns addressed. We're also able to track and close out requests so that we know popular topics and trends, and we can ensure families have the information they need. We're committed to supporting our students. That means that our principals, teachers, and school staff are ready to meet the needs of all of our students. This year, we're focused on providing strong instruction, creating welcoming and supportive environments for students and families, and engaging students so that we encourage good attendance. As I mentioned before, this past year was a planning year for the implementation of inclusive education. All schools convened IPT, or what we called inclusion planning teams, focused on planning for specific grade levels, and educators participated in an additional 8 hours of PD focused on building foundational knowledge relative to inclusive education practice. As we begin school year 24-25, inclusive practices are being implemented in grades K0 to K2, 7th and 9th grade, and schools' IPTs are beginning planning for additional grades to implement in school year 25-26. Upon reflection of the IPT process, we're implementing some changes as a result of the feedback we received from different stakeholders. For example, we'll be focusing on progress monitoring this first year of implementation for both students with disabilities and multilingual learners. As chronic absenteeism rates continue to decrease, attendance will continue to be at the forefront of our work this year to keep that decrease going strong. Our students cannot learn if they are not in school. This is why it's critical that our students come to school. To foster a sense of belonging, we will continue to grow our early college and career pathway programs, which have recently added or will be adding 10 new programs across 9 schools for the upcoming year. In terms of operations and facilities, regarding staffing at our schools and in our classrooms, nearly 95% of all teaching and 83% of paraprofessional positions are filled or in the process of being filled before the start of the school year. In terms of transportation, we have good news again this year to report from the BPS Transportation Department. First, on Friday, August 16th, I joined Mayor Wu to announce that BPS signed a 3-year contract with Zoom, a new bus tracking platform for families that will improve real-time bus tracking and really enhance communication and transparency about their students' bus. The BPS transportation team has already implemented systems and reforms that improved our year-over-year on-time performance by 2.5 percentage points during the 23-24 school year. We're confident that this new Zoom technology, which BPS has successfully piloted over the past few months, will allow us to improve our operations and gather comprehensive ridership data to drive our on-time performance higher. BPS runs 632 yellow buses on a daily basis, transporting approximately 22,000 children across nearly 200 BPS and non-BPS sites. All students who are assigned to their school in Aspen by August 9th are guaranteed to have their bus assignments in place for the start of the school. Bus assignments have been sent to families by mail and email and are also available in the Zoom app. The team continues working hard to assign buses for eligible students who registered or changed schools later in August, and the vast majority of these students will also have their bus assignments in place for the first day of school. More than 32,000 Boston students in grades 7 through 12 receive M7 MBTA passes from BPS. Students can ride the MBTA free for the first day and pick up their passes at school on the first day. After driver and staff shortages just a couple of years ago, we are now fully staffed. As of the end of last week, we had 743 active bus drivers and 36 trainees, 706 active bus monitors, and 62 pending hires, nearly 200 more bus monitors than last year, and more than 25 customer service staff, including multilingual staff, are ready for the start of school on the hotline. At the start of the 2024 school year, we will have 39 electric buses on the road, representing 5% of our total fleet, as well as propane buses or green transition fuel and diesel. BPS Transportation, under the leadership of Dan Rosengard, is aggressively pursuing all available grant funding for EV buses. During the 23-24 school year, BPS secured nearly $25 million in grant funding, which will help us electrify approximately 75 additional buses, tentatively for the start of the 25-26 year. We continue to meet regularly with our Transportation Advisory Council to identify and collaborate on additional areas for continued transportation improvements for students, families, and schools. Families and caregivers with questions can contact the transportation hotline at 617-635-9520 from 6 a.m. until 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. They can email us at schoolbus@bostonpublicschools.org or visit our website at bostonpublicschools.org/transportation. In terms of facilities, the BPS Facilities Department has been busy this summer preparing our facilities for the return of students. Projects include 15 bathroom renovations that have been completed and 3 more expected to be completed before the start of school at the Dudley Street Neighborhood Charter School, the Manning, and the O'Donnell schools. 13 gymnasium renovations completed, 5 major pool repairs completed at Charlestown High School, Madison Park, Technical Vocational High, Mattahunt Elementary, Umana Academy K-8, and Up Academy Dorchester. 2 playground projects were completed. 1 library project is still in progress at the Hernandez. 5 exterior door projects were completed, 5 kitchen renos, and 7 flooring projects in progress, 3 completed. Just a massive amount of work for facilities with our buildings so that they can be ready, beautiful, and for students and staff come the start of school. I also want to give a special shout out to our custodians who work hard every day to make sure our schools shine when students and staff return. Thank you for your hard work keeping our buildings clean every day of the year. Food services, couple updates. BPS Food and Nutrition Services is ready to make sure that our students have nutritious and tasty quality meals available at our schools. Breakfast, lunch, and after-school meals are free to all BPS students. No paperwork is required. This year, 98 kitchens will be cooking on site at the start of school, and we plan to have 107 cooking on site by the end of October, compared to starting with only 85 sites cooking last year. Full salad bars are featured at every cooking school and will feature rotating menus of fresh ingredients. The remaining schools with staffing challenges or without kitchens receive meals prepared in Roxbury by Black-owned City Fresh Foods. FNS has 44 open positions compared to 75 last year for day one, and we're still working hard to fill those. Once those positions are filled, we'll be able to cook on site at additional schools. Our breakfast and lunches feature whole grains, lean protein, white milk, and lots of fruits and vegetables. We're also focused on offering culturally relevant meals that help create a welcoming environment for our students and teach them about foods from all over the world. Kosher and halal meals are also available at all schools upon request. Menus will feature 7 new culturally relevant dishes, including jerk chicken, a Caribbean bowl, chicken and chickpea tikka masala, and a falafel bowl and bean chili. So really, the food service is working hard with the schools, the students, and the staff to expand our menu options. In terms of safety, we're ready to begin the school year by finalizing the deployment of our safety specialists this week. Our team has met with the Boston Police Department's School Engagement Unit to plan for the support and resources for the upcoming year. Safety specialists continue to participate in school opening planning and ongoing safety meetings. They've also met with BPS Transportation to learn about the new Zoom app. We've hired a diverse staff that includes individuals who identify as Haitian, Cape Verdean, Latinx, and Black, and speak 5 different languages. The BPS Community Connectors Program will meet with Executive Director of Opportunities and Youth, Brian Marks, for a second year in a row to solidify our collaboration with the supervisors of attendance, and will partner in making home visits. And those home visits are really critical. Community Connectors also participated in numerous home visits with BPS family liaisons throughout last year, including 25 since February alone. The Office of Emergency Management, what we call OEM, has engaged with every school and has also conducted more than 90 school visits to assist with safety plans, drills, and follow-ups with safety and risk assessments. Operational leaders in school soups continue to support schools by helping them to complete their safety plans, which are due on September 1st. They have also conducted various emergency management trainings in preparation for school opening, including 3 at the BPS Operations Management Institute, 3 at ALI, and 1 at the New School Leaders. And they also continue to conduct active shooter trainings in coordination with BPD. In terms of athletics, I'd like to end our back to school update with BPS athletics. After a historic year in BPS sports, our teams have already taken to the field and the pool to start getting ready for what is sure to be an exciting year. Starting August 19th, football, cheerleading, cross country, boys and girls soccer, and girls volleyball and swimming began to practice. More than 2,500 students have registered to play so far, with some teams already participating in scrimmages. Games officially begin on Tuesday, September 3rd. And I'm really looking forward to sharing their many successes with you in my superintendent's report in the year to come. This is also a good place to remind families to make sure that children's physicals and vaccinations are up to date in Aspen. And we reminded families of that last year. Before I close, I want to take a moment just to acknowledge somebody very special to the BPS community. At the end of this week, Chief of Schools and Accountability, Dr. Drew Eccleston, will be leaving BPS to transition to a new role as Rhode Island's Deputy Educator Commissioner for Systems Transformation. Drew's really had a long and impactful career here, beginning with his first years in city year as a core member. He's been an assistant principal. He's been a network superintendent. He had a previous role as Deputy Superintendent of Academics, and he now sits in the current role of Chief of Schools and Accountability. I also just want to remind that Drew stepped up when leadership was needed here in the district before my coming, and he was the acting soup. He's really been an essential team member for me, and I know for many in our district. It's a really bittersweet moment anytime someone so talented leaves the BPS for a position that they can show even greater leadership. So I will very much miss Drew, and I know our teams and our educators and our leaders will miss Drew. And I did not want our meeting to go. He's not here this evening, but I know he's watching, and just want him to know all of our appreciation for his many years of work here in BPS. We also like to say here in BPS that it's not goodbye, it's just see you later. I think there's many of us that are evidence of that. So I'm hoping that that's definitely the case with Drew at some time in the future. Couple of bright spots to finish with. First of all, announcing the first cohort of the Dr. Carol Johnson District Leadership Fellowship. This is a new program in partnership with BU to develop the next generation of BPS system level and district school leaders. The 14-month program is named after former BPS Superintendent Carol Johnson, that we lovingly call Dr. J. She gave many years of service at BPS and was really foundational and just really pivoted toward a district that was centered with racial and social justice, really balanced support, accountability, and took a systems level approach to school improvement. And I think just was one of the most relational people that I've ever met. She cared about every single person that she spoke with. I want to specifically thank Dr. Linda Chen, Dr. Leslie Ryan Miller, and Dr. Drew Eccleston for really thinking about how to bring this initiative to bear and for prioritizing now the next cadre of senior BPS district leaders. These new leaders will continue to cultivate and support BPS in the years to come, and it's just a key component of our sustainability. I also want to thank our partners, Boston University, Wheelock College of Education, for stepping to the table and supporting the program so well. I'm also really proud of the work of leaders and just in terms of the fellows to share with you. Raquel Martinez, who's the head of school at Snowden, Katie Sen, who's the program director of world language, Joanne Etienne, who's the director of Boston Community Hub Schools, Anthony Valdez, who's the program director in the Department of Early Ed, and Carla Jenkins, who's the principal at the Tobin K-8. There's also financial analyst Christina Radley, April Clarkson, who's our senior executive director of the Office of Data and Accountability, Hai Sun, who's the principal at the Mather Elementary, Monique Rodriguez Tabarros, who's our transformation manager, and Marcus Simpson, who is head of school at CASH, Community Academy of Science and Health. Also, Ann Hernandez, who's the Region 2 District Social Worker, Courtney Ryan Kinney, who's the Region 2 Ops Leader, Tinu Sebe, who's the principal of the Shaw Taylor Elementary, Michelle Simon, who's the principal of the Mozart, and Sarita Thomas, who's the principal of the Trotta Elementary. So we just congratulate all of these fellows. It's such an outstanding, when I look across them, such an outstanding group of leaders. And it just reminds me every day how blessed we are in BPS to have the leaders that we have. This morning, members of the BPS Tech Department, OIT, honored the memory of cherished member of their leadership team, Andy Horgan. They dedicated the Andy Horgan Network Operations Center, which is on the 3rd floor of this building. Andy, who passed away earlier this summer, and I made mention of this as we did a moment of silence at school committee, was a beloved BPS friend and colleague and truly a pioneering force in integrating technology to enhance our students' learning. I'm also proud to share that we nominated Andy posthumously, and he was in fact the award winner of the Secretary's Leadership and Innovation Award at the 30th Annual Massachusetts Digital Government Summit. This is one of the highest awards that's given in technology in our state, and his wife Audrey will receive that on September 19th. Today I was thrilled to visit Boston City Council, where earlier Dr. Albert Holland was celebrated again, and rightly so, for the naming of the Burke High School to the Dr. Albert D. Holland High School of Technology. He was honored there with a city council resolution. Many of his supporters and fans, and myself included, were there. I want to thank Councilor Brian Morrell for inviting me and for hosting the event. It really is a true celebration and so well deserved by Al. And I know that the Holland Tech will be extremely excited in this new incoming year. On Wednesday, August 14th, I joined Mayor Michelle Wu, representatives of the city's Public Facilities Department, and community members at a topping off ceremony, or what we call the Raising the Beam, for an addition to the P.J. Kennedy Elementary School in East Boston. The $21.5 million project includes a 4,000 square foot, 2-story addition, housing a new main entrance, which is now at level or at grade, a new stairwell, a new elevator, serving all 3 levels of the building, and accessible toilets. It also includes a renovation to provide accessibility upgrades and fire protection to the entire existing school building. The signing and placement of the last beam marked the completion of the school's additions to steel structure. Partial renovations to the existing building will be completed for the start of the school year. The addition and the remaining renovation work will be completed for the start of next school year, 25-26. And finally, next week on Friday, September 6th at 4:30, we'll be holding the annual citywide countdown to kindergarten celebration, which I know is dear to Chair's heart. at the Boston Children's Museum. This is truly one of the best events to go to. You just feel great during it and after it. To see all the little ones so excited about school and to just see pure joy, I guess is how I would describe it. I would like to invite the school committee members, to put on that yellow shirt. I'm going to kindergarten and join myself and Chair as we welcome the littlest of our learners and their families into VPS. It's really a great event. So I know that this is lengthy. It was full of really important updates. The one last thing I'd just like to make a brief comment on was the recent decision by the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. I know it was in the paper. People may have seen it. I just want to restate that we recognize paraprofessionals are integral to our mission to provide a high quality student experience here in VPS. And I just want to reassure the committee and the public that we have and we will continue to honor the Arbitrators Award. There's no question to that. So with that, Chair, I will turn it back to you.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent. I'll now open it up to questions and discussion from the committee. I'd like to remind my colleagues about our agreed upon norm that we each have 5 minutes, 1 or 2 questions. Please make sure your questions are on topics related to the items in the superintendent's report. And I'd like to also remind the BPS staff to be brief in your responses and to please speak at a slower pace to assist our interpreters. Thank you. Comments? Oh.
Somebody else go first.
Mhm.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Al.
No, I said I just got here.
Really.
Mainly a comment, Superintendent, thank you for the in-depth report about getting ready for schools. So many of the numbers sound good, from the transportation hiring to the overall teacher hiring. And a couple of points jumped out to me. One, loved hearing about the openings in food and nutritional services compared to last year. That was a big issue, holding back a number of our schools because they just couldn't get the people, and glad that's way down. And the new menus, love that. Culturally relevant. Look forward to having a few meals in schools this year and trying the falafel in particular. Second, I was surprised you didn't mention, or maybe I missed it, but in that voluminous list of all the renovations going on that facilities have done, the 15 bathrooms, the 13 gyms, the 5 pools, the 2 playgrounds, the 1 library. We also have a brand new school opening,
Ew.
Josiah Quincy Upper School, which I had the opportunity to tour the other day, and it is absolutely stunning, and just another stunning new high school in Boston Public Schools. And when I stopped and added up, what the city and BPS and Mass School Building Authority spent on Dearborn and BAA and now JQAS, the Carter, which is also under work, and I had the opportunity to tour that as well, and it'll be ready next summer. 450 million between those 4 schools, and then what was it? Another, you said 21 million for the PJ Kennedy. The Quincy Lower has a lot of work going on. The Horace Mann, which will be opening, and they're very diligently working on in Charlestown, or the move for the Horace Mann from the old Edwards. We have a tremendous amount of work going on in our schools. And as much as we keep talking about having a facilities plan and trying to update and build new, a lot of that is going on right now. And I hope folks get a chance to see the new JQAS. It is absolutely, it's even more beautiful than BAA. And BAA and Dearborn are stunning schools as well. So we have a lot of good things going on, and congrats to the PFD, Public Facilities Department of the city, and our facilities department working so well together. And I also had to join your shout out to Dr. Eccleston, not only for his long work with our district, but in particular, and I'm sure the chair would echo me on this, how he stepped up and was interim superintendent for a summer after this committee had chosen to hire you, but before you were able to start because of you were closing out your role in Somerville. And we appreciated how Drew was willing to do that, and wish him nothing but success with the Department of Education in Rhode Island, where I'm sure he's going to be extremely busy.
Right.
So thank him as well for his time with us and his work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Trump.
Oh,
just a very quick request. You mentioned that there are 300 new hirings, teacher hiring. Okay. Given the expansive inclusion program that we are performing right now, may I have or may we have the breakdown on the hirings, particularly with respect to dual language programs, teachers who are hired into dual language programs, teachers who are multi-licensed, and also the breakdown on the national origin, the protected categories, so-called, of those hirings. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Tran, and I'll make note of that. I know that we will be presenting from Human Capital wherever the first school committee meeting in October is. They run the data and they pull the data throughout September, and then they roll it up, and so they'll be able to break down all the hirings then. But I will ask if there's a glimpse that we can give for the next school committee meeting, particularly on the bilingual component, because I know that that's been for the committee definitely an emphasis, and it is for us as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Tran, you asked my question. I too, just specifically on the new hires, not only because of the proposal that we're still discussing, but just to have, especially when it comes to the licenses, right? So thank you for that. Excited to hear a lot of the progress in terms of, transportation, food services. In terms of food services, also for the folks that are at home, at what point are the families requesting the cultural, when we think about food, when is that happening in the process? Just curious.
Annalise Tanner, who's the director, is here, and so I'd love for her to come up, just, I think, for the committee to actually
Awesome.
meet her for the first time. She's done really transformational work.
While you walk here too, the second question is, how can we get some Kachupa Bowl included? I'm so serious, but we would love to learn a little bit. What is the work that you and your team have to do in order to continue to think on adding other cultural food just for the future? Just would love to learn a little bit about that.
We start our menu planning process for next school year in October.
Okay.
We get 1 month of school before we begin planning next year. And we have a really extensive student engagement process where our chefs go out and do chef in the dining room at our schools once a week to get feedback from our students. We also have an amazing program this year called Global Student Choice Day, where we had students last year suggest menu items. We tested those out and they voted on them at every school. And then this year, each school is going to serve the menu item that their school voted for, which is a big deal. In food service, we always serve the same menu across the district every day. And this global day that we're doing allows students to choose the foods that will be at their school. We also have the cafeteria managers go through the menu and give feedback. They know what the kids are asking for and would like. And so we're one of the only districts that has all 109 managers give the chef feedback on the menu. And then we go through our procurement process, and then we bring it back out to the students again for input and feedback. So that's how we've gotten to those 7 dishes that we've added this year and the student choice. And we'll continue to be taking ideas from our students and the community so that our menus really reflect our students and what they want to eat.
Oh, thank you. That's great. I did not know about that. Thank you for sharing. And no other questions. Again, just excited for the school year. I'm really sad about Drew, but I'm also happy for him. It's always sad to see people leave, but always excited to see the opportunities that are coming up for them as well. And welcome to the team, Ms. Sullivan. Excited to have you here. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you. Mr. Alkins.
I didn't have any particular questions other than to say I've had limited opportunity to participate in
some of the countdown to kindergarten items, being that my child will be starting kindergarten next week. Actually, I just came from a parent night, so that's why I'm late. But I've seen some great energy around the start of the year, so excited for that, and excited to see all the students seeing friends, seeing old teachers, and I think that energy is infectious, and so it's just good to be back around it.
Thank you. Just have one comment to make about last night's back to school event. I was on that call with the 800 plus parents, which was great, but again, only represents a drop in the bucket of our families. And was wondering, whether or not each and every one of our schools is having a similar kind of event for parents. It was clear in a lot of what we heard that folks were happy for the opportunity, but most of the comments were really more specific to their own school issues. And it felt like there were just sort of a certain list of things that would be wonderful to figure out a way that all parents could access this information, clearly given that there, as I said, there's so many things throughout this year that we're going to need that very positive parent connection for. So how are schools thinking about getting ready as well as?
Yeah, so this is something that we spend a lot of time with the family liaisons and with our principals on. And I know Dr. Tavares, because we actually talked about this yesterday. I think it would be good to just share, like with the family liaisons, all the work that we've done around PD and meeting time for them with their principals.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity, Chair Robinson. To Superintendent's reminder of the ALI session with professional development, we had the opportunity to have the team of the Office of Family and Community Advancement present to all of our principals. We were really fortunate that we had the support of the academics team to really look for the connection and the importance also symbolically by having us part of ALI. We polled the principals while there at the meeting to ask them about their plans for engaging families in their back to school events. And the majority of our schools, I can report from the poll that we took, absolutely have a plan to do a very robust welcoming for our families. And for some of those schools that were a bit hesitant, whether it's because it's a new community or a new leader and just needed some support, that was the opportunity for us to be able to say, hey, we have some resources, we can really support you. And here are some of the ways in which we can just show up. We're really fortunate to have such an incredibly involved team. For example, the helpline, they don't just answer phones here at the bowling building. They actually are tagged to go and support exactly what you were asking, those events to open schools, and our teams go out and have man tables and provide resources for families. And a lot of really savvy school leaders really utilize the resources that we provide in order to be front facing in front of families. For us, the 2.0 version of this is to continue to have high quality opportunities for families to engage at school so that they feel really welcomed and feel a sense of belonging at their buildings. So it's always the mark that we want to hit. And we're really fortunate that we get to work really closely with the academics team. And Dr. Chen and I really see that eye to eye, that that's part of the really important work that we need to do in schools.
Great. Thank you. There are no other questions. I'll now entertain a motion to receive the superintendent's report. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Is there any objection to approving the motion by unanimous consent? Hearing none, the superintendent's report is approved. We'll now move on to general public comment. Ms.
Thank you.
Parvex?
Thank you, Chair. The public comment period is an opportunity for parents, caregivers, students, and other concerned parties to make brief presentations to the school committee on pertinent school issues. Questions on specific school matters are not answered at this time, but are referred to the superintendent for a later response. Questions on specific school policy matters are not answered at this time, but may be subject of later discussion by the committee. The meeting will feature 2 public comment periods, with the first comment period limited to 1 hour. Priority will be given to those testifying in person. Time permitting, the committee will then open it up for virtual testimony. After 1 hour, anyone who hasn't testified will have the opportunity to do so at the end of the meeting. We have 19 speakers this evening. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak, and I would remind you when you have 30 seconds remaining. If your remarks are longer than 3 minutes, please email me your comments for distribution to the committee. The time that an interpreter uses for English interpretation will not be deducted from a speaker's allotted time. Speakers may not reassign their times to others. Please direct your comments to the chair and refrain from addressing individual school committee members or district staff. Please note, the comments of any public speaker do not represent the Boston Public Schools or the Boston School Committee. Please state your name, affiliation, and what neighborhood you are from before you begin. We will begin this evening with our in-person speakers. Our first speakers are Jean McGuire, Deidre Manning, John Mudd, and Karen Moni Brodek. Miss Jean McGuire, please.
Good evening. This is quite different from the old days. I'm here about the issue of the proposed uses for the White Stadium. So I will read the first part and ask for comments from you from the second part. The Boston students deserve a renovated White Stadium, and they deserve a public White Stadium, not a private sports and entertainment complex built to enable private profits. It is clear that this entire process is being driven by the needs of private investors, not the needs of the Boston students. We feel the process is being rushed, the proper state reviews aren't being conducted, and community members, such as myself and organizations that surround this neighborhood, have concerns about public access and transportation impacts that are being ignored in a mad rush to meet this soccer team's desired opening date. Boston Public Schools football teams are being displaced from their home at White Stadium. I drive by and it says school boys stadium because they didn't know there were girls in the schools, and so I assume that the word boy assumes all students in Boston. All because this women's soccer team won't allow their cleats on the grass field. As far as we know, there's still no complete plan for where the displaced teams will practice and play their regular season games. The stadium's design prioritizes the experience for paid soccer fans over that of Boston Public School track and field spectators, cutting most of the new stadium seats off from a view of the track. It's clear that the city of Boston is planning to use the $50 million in taxpayers' money it's identified for the White Stadium to develop an overbuilt, gold-plated professional soccer stadium rather than the quality multi-sport high school team stadium the Boston Public Schools deserve. The total cost of this project is being driven up by luxury seating, a jumbotron, beer gardens, shops for team merchandise, and other amenities that have nothing whatsoever to do with Boston school athletics.
30 seconds.
Yes. Oh, all right. Stadium financing experts say that a flagship high school sports stadiums can easily be built for less than $50 million. And there are numerous examples of high quality school stadiums built for less, some of them going on right now in the surrounding communities of Boston. Boston can afford a public renovation to White Stadium that avoids all the problems of hosting a for-profit professional sports team, including the impact of 11,000 fans traveling to and from the park, displacing the community on dozens of warm weather days. I assume.
Thank
that
you
means-
very much.
Keep going?
No, your
Okay.
time is up. Thank you.
I'll start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Deidre Manning.
My name is Deirdre Manning. I'm a Dorchester resident and parent of two public school students. In my last testimony, I identified two reasons why I was removing my younger daughter from Boston Public Schools, one being the lack of change to an exclusionary exam school policy, the other being that the Henderson School still did not have a leader. Last week, I understand that there was an announcement made that Dr. Wiggins was hired to be the new head of school. It unfortunately was nearly 3 years since Mrs. Lampron was assaulted by a 16-year-old girl and knocked unconscious in November of 2021. There were near daily fights in my fourth grade daughter's classes, which prevented her and others from learning. Nearly 2 years later, I moved my younger daughter to the Murphy when I realized that BPS administrators were not invested in improving the chaotic conditions at the Henderson. Her academic achievement was also impacted, as shown in her MAP testing. The Henderson was an amazing community serving a diverse population, including marginalized families of children with atypical abilities. I wish Dr. Wiggins the best of luck in restoring the Henderson to the special place it once was. Instead of improving conditions at elementary schools so that all children can be prepared to compete for opportunities at the few quality high schools in BPS, administrators have allowed a construct to be put in place that excludes the majority of students who live in certain areas of the city and who attend non-Title I schools from attending exam schools. When I was essentially forced to remove my older daughter from the Henderson and send her to a charter school, I had no idea that the move made it essentially impossible for her to earn a seat at an exam school. When you look at the people who serve on the task force, you don't see any members who represent students who attend non-Title I schools. For example, all the BPS administrators and teachers were from Title I elementary schools, with the exception of those who participated from BLA and BLS. There is no one on the committee that represented parochial schools or charter schools or even private schools. I completely understand members advocating for people from their own communities or representing the interests of clients that they serve, but I don't understand why Boston Public Schools did not look out for the interests of members of our community, including public school students who are not represented on the task force. Public schools are meant to serve all members of the public. Administrators should not be putting policies in place that are meant to exclude children, 12-year-olds,
seconds.
11-year-olds from educational opportunities. I find it unconscionable that I'm still talking about this situation and feel that I'm not being heard, that even school children who came and talked about being excluded, that their testimony didn't seem to matter. I'm hopeful that 2 years from now, when my now fifth grader hopefully has an opportunity for an exam school seat, that changes will be in place. Please don't let this continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is John Mudd.
Good evening. My name is John Mudd. As all of you know, I'm a resident of Cambridge and a longtime education advocate in Boston. I'm going to try something different tonight. This is my effort to identify constructive conclusions from the superintendent evaluations that could be the basis for goal setting by the school committee for the superintendent for next year at its upcoming retreat. First, on multilingual learners and native language instruction. Many members expressed concern with multilingual learners and the importance of native language in instruction. It was mentioned in 6 evaluations and 4 recommended areas of growth. The summative evaluation states the district needs to have clear plans for ensuring multilingual learners receive quality native language instruction. Another says, is there an anticipated timeline for the full native language instruction across the district. The problem is that the current inclusive education plan calls for assigning the vast majority of multilingual learners into English immersion, general education classes with ESL, and only a small number of ML students would go into bilingual programs with native language instruction. My recommendation is hold a full discussion of multilingual learner policy with reports on the 2024 Access and 2024 MCAS test results for MLs at low ELD levels who are already in Gen Ed with the SL. If the results continue to show anything like the past 90% failure rate, establish new goals for the superintendent. Those would be stop implementing inclusion for multilingual learners, and 2, establish measurable goals for the expansion of bilingual education programs providing instruction in native language. Secondly, on equity and equitable literacy, many evaluations mention equitable literacy, but none explicitly ask for the data on how equity among marginalized groups has been improved, as required in the Opportunity and Achievement Gap Policy and the Racial Equity Planning Tool. Recommendation: insist on a real equity and data analysis of equitable literacy, showing the gaps between Black, Latino, multilingual learners, special education, and low-income students,
30
and
seconds.
demand this disaggregated analysis for all REPT reports. Finally, it's clearly true that the improvements in student outcomes under inclusion and equitable literacy will take time, but this assumes that the strategies for literacy and bilingual learners are correct. Experts have raised questions about both. Waiting for failed results from bad
you, Mr. Mott.
policies to show up is a fool's errand. It is the moral failure of the
Thank you.
bystander.
Your time
Thank
is
you
up.
for hearing me. Sorry I went over, Lena.
Next speaker is Karen Moni Brodek.
Hello, really glad to be here. My name is Karen Monty Brodek. I'm the president of the Emerald Necklace Conservancy, a nonprofit here in Boston. And I'm going to use the first few seconds of my time to conclude the comments that Dr. G. McGuire was not able to complete. Dr. G. McGuire and I are both members of a group these days called Franklin Park Defenders. Franklin Park is our park, but our community is being told to accept changes we didn't ask for and don't want. This would never happen on the Boston Common. It absolutely shouldn't happen in the environmental justice communities around Franklin Park. If this proposal was really about helping kids, if the proponents could donate their money to charity or partner with the city to invest in a public stadium with no strings attached. It's not about helping kids, it's about making a profit. I urge the school committee to reject this privatization proposal and go back to the drawing board with a plan for a truly public renovation of White Stadium. That concludes the end of Dr. G. McGuire's comments. These are my comments. Again, I'm Karen Monty Brodek, president of the Emerald Necklace Conservancy. We are a nonprofit that partners with neighborhoods and community groups up and down the Emerald Necklace and the city of Boston, the town of Brookline, and DCR, and a little bit of MassDOT. There's a bunch of agencies that all have important facilities for our public in and around the parks. There are serious concerns about this proposal, which is effectively the 95% demolition of White Stadium, the expansion, a lease, and privatization of the stadium, and several acres of Franklin Park, and the impacts that it has around the neighborhood. I know how important this type of work is. I myself am a graduate of another urban public school system, the Atlanta Public Schools. I know all of the things that I imagine. I know many of the challenges that you face. The Emerald Necklace Conservancy has been working to invest in Franklin Park and has expressed our desire numerous times to partner to find ways to do this together. As Dr. McGuire has pointed out, and I will be providing in a memo that I have provided with a variety of commissions in the past. There are examples of stadiums being built, amazing stadiums in the area for 30 million and less, some for 8 million, for 6,000 students that are amazing in Lowell, that would be 100% available to the public students all of the time, including the football teams. We
30
know
seconds.
we know how important it is that those things are available for our public school students all of the time, and we'd love to work together to come up with a better alternative. You need to know that the community was not involved in developing this alternative. This project was brought to the community, and today neighborhood groups all around the park have signed on to a statement of principle saying they want to renovate White Stadium. Absolutely. And they're excited about the mayor's investment in your budget of $50 million towards that project. How can we do that together and make a wonderful project?
Thank you very
do-
much. Your
I do
time
want
is
to
up.
say that I think it's important that you know there is an ongoing lawsuit, and I
Ms.
want you to
Kelly-
know that.
Ms.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speakers are C. Caliga, Christine Jurkovic, Clairmundo Gonzalez, and Robert Jenkins. Ms. Caliga?
Cold in here, guys. Not comfortable. All right. First of all, I am the mother of 5 students. 3 are grown and attended Boston schools, and we're on our second round of kids. My daughter's about to start senior year at Binker. My son is going to his sophomore year at Tech Boston. He plays soccer, and I love soccer. I am also here to say, first of all, when we talk about food, you just changed my things. Why we didn't talk about plant-based. Do you all know that a plant-based diet is the #1 thing an individual can do against climate crisis, which we are in, not climate change? And that leads me to say, why is the Boston School Committee not going against this plan for White Stadium? I grew up in Roxbury. I went to concerts there growing up. It is where we go to breathe. People with less influence and affluence live around that park, and that is why they're doing this to that park, against people's wishes. We don't need 10,000 fans traipsing through White to get to the stadium, irreparably damaging our flora and fauna. They're going to take down old growth trees, 70 to 100. They're going to put a big thing there that's an iconic stadium, which was a trust for our Boston public school children and the community use. We don't need all that money for the Jumbotron and the beer garden. They're going to pave green space. We're in climate crisis, and for our children, every inch of green, urban green space is so important right now. And that is the legacy we're going to leave for our children. We can fix White Stadium with a lot less money without the Jumbotron, the luxury boxes, the beer garden. We just want the stands fixed, better locker rooms, and a good track. That's what our students need, and that's what the community needs. And I will fight for that if I have to chain myself to a tree they're going to cut down. I am serious, because this is not the legacy that I want for my children or their children. And I expect Boston Public Schools to stand with us, because you don't do that to a park in these times. This is where the inner city goes to. Have you been there on a weekend in good weather? Have
30
you seen that
seconds.
that's where people go to breathe and to commune with nature and to gather with their families? Mostly inner city people and mostly people of color. Okay, so I really don't think they would do this down on Boston Commons or Jamaica Pond. The more I live on the funky side now of Jamaica, the less affluent side. That's where they're doing it. And my family still has a house on Waverly Street in Roxbury. And so this is what they're doing.
Thank you very
our
much. Your
park.
time is up.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Christine Jurkovic.
Hello, my name is Kristen Jerkois, and I'm a JP resident. I've been a JP resident for, wow, almost 30 years. And I'm a parent of 2 BPS kids. And as a seasoned parent who has been to multiple fundraisers and have raised money for libraries and playing fields and playgrounds and books and classrooms, I see the effort that parents put in. I want to say that I support the White Stadium project for a lot of the reasons that people oppose it. One of the things that I've seen over my years is, and it's not a fun topic, but the maintenance of things after we raise money and get these new fields or facilities put in, they deteriorate. And I mean, no offense to the city of Boston or the public schools, you have to make difficult decisions, but budgets get cut and things do not get maintained. And having an outside public-private tenant in there will help ensure that the facility remains useful. I mean, look at it right now. It's because of that lack of investment that we're in the state we're in right now. And I know there are different people who feel that, you know, we could do this on our own. I've been here for 30 years. This has been a conversation that has been going on for at least that long. And there have been different initiatives also with private money that has tried to push it through. Mayor Menino did, but nothing is happening. The fact that it's a women's soccer team coming in means so much to so many athletes in this city. And I have soccer players and track runners and lacrosse players. So I've been in every field in this city and around the state. So I think it will add value to all the athletic teams in the city. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Clairmundo Gonçalves,
Salve próximo
and we are
falante.
having an interpreter, Mario.
Nós também tem intérprete
Mario,
Mário.
are you online?
Yes, I am online.
Boa tarde, tudo ok?
Just a second, we're getting your interpreter.
Momento, portanto.
Mario, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
I can assist with translation, if that helps.
All right.
I can assist with the translation, if that
perfect.
helps.
Boa tarde, tudo ok?
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, meu nome é Clarimundo Gonçalves, aí de Cláudio Gonçalves, cabo-verdiano.
He's Claudio.
Meu nome é Clarimundo
Claudio
Gonçalves,
and son
portanto,
of
Cláudio
Claudio
Gonçalves.
É Clarimundo Gonçalves, pai de Cláudio Gonçalves.
Clarimundo
A minha é
Gonçalves,
Clarimundo
he's
Gonçalves,
father of
pai
Claudio
de
Gonçalves.
Cláudio Gonçalves.
Cláudio vem de Cabo Verde na
Cláudio
2018.
vem de Cabo Verde na 2018.
Começa a escola
E começa a escola
na Ocean Garden.
he started school in
de
Ocean
dezembro de
Garden
2018.
He arrived to the
on
country in
December
November
2018.
15th, 2018, and he started at the Orchard Gardens in December of 2018.
E
Yeah, nas 3 semanas de escola, se começa a abusar dele psicologicamente.
In the 3 months that he was at the school, he suffers from abuse at the school.
Depois começa a me chacar-se na escola.
After the abuse and during the abuse, he began wetting himself at school.
Yeah, começa com o comportamento a seguir de que ele continua que ele abusa, continua com o comportamento violento.
And then he resorted to compartmentalizing his violence and exhibiting violence behavior.
Yes, que começa a levar Boston Medical Center.
And he had to be serviced and brought to Boston Medical Center for services.
Yeah, e Boston Medical Center, doutora de Boston Medical Center, sata frama, escola, sa frama, minha filho sofre violência física na casa, que é mentira.
And representative at Boston Medical Center alleged that he was being a victim of violence at home, which was not true.
Yeah, ele frama, mas tem que envolver o governo, que é DCF, ele pode envolver o DCF, para o DCF saber tudo que que fazer nada.
So they referred the case to DCF, and DCF did investigate the situation, but did not find anything or any fault at home.
Yeah, e depois que hospital papel com DCF 3 dias depois para ser em casa, vai fazer investigação, ele vai mandar carta sobre um problema que está na casa.
After DCF was notified, they did an investigation at his home 3 days later, and they verified that nothing was happening at the home.
E dia 26 de abril de 2019, a professora criada tinha uma minha irmã.
On April 26, 2018, a Cape Verdean staff woman contacted
Yeah,
him at the house.
Minha tenho contato de pai, mas minha irmã é contato de emergência. Sempre está chamando todo dia na escola, está põe pressão para a escola.
He's the primary contact for the school, so they contacted him to come up to the school.
Yeah, essa tinha minha irmã, 26 de abril de 2019, que criada tinha minha irmã, e falou para a família vai tomar Cláudio na escola, para morrer. Cláudio de manhã na escola, essa cria mandar na bus.
They contacted his sister to let him know that they had to come pick him up from school because he was dysregulated and needed some support.
E aí, Cláudio, tu toma bus 2h20, as camandal na bus, as adventure minha irmã na 3 horas, que bus tu chega paragem.
He usually gets on the bus at 2:20, but he did not. They did not get a call till about 3 o'clock.
40 minutos de mas, pes fica com minha filha na escola, as que informa a família.
40 minutes was just too long a time to keep his son at the school without notifying anyone in the family.
E aí, minha tia estava na paragem, tá esperando minha filha, bus para, tudo alguém diz, bus arranca minha filha que diz, minha tia vai à escola também minha filha.
So his aunt was waiting for him at the bus stop, and she waited, and everyone got off the bus, and his son wasn't there, so she went to the school to pick him up.
Tempo só pouco, só não tenho que acabar de explicar. E depois minha tia frase-me, tinha filho, quando ele vai à escola, tinha filho descontrolado, em pânico, completamente violento. Minha tia frase-me aquela que a causa de ir à casa, a causa de ir ao hospital, depois ela resolvendo a mandar ao hospital.
So when she arrived at the school, he was dysregulated, having a violent outburst. And his aunt suggested to the school that it wasn't good to keep him at the school and send him home. Better off that he went to the hospital.
Quando a gente chega no hospital, eles dão a minha filha alta, quando eu também em casa, me perguntei a minha filha o que aconteceu, ele falou que a segurança que bate mal na sala de aula, leva ele para o quarto de Miss Dursi, ele pode torcer ele morrijo que nem minha que aguentar, ele pode castar na chão, ele pode doer de roupa peito, ele tapar a mão na boca que respira mais.
30 seconds.
Yeah, he said that when they spoke to him at the hospital, he explained how the security officer at the school grabbed him by the hand, put him in a room, and allegedly had his knee in his body and chest, and it didn't allow him to breathe, and he suffered, suffocated a little bit.
Minha filha foi quando ele abriu hoje, aquela segurança que opera você barriga, 3 dias depois ele começa a ter sangue, essa sangue até hoje, essa micha cama até hoje, desde 2019.
And he said when he woke up from the incident, he's witnessed the school resource officer with his knee in his chest. And since then, he's been dysregulated, bedwetting, wetting himself, and having violent outbursts.
E basta public school saber tudo que usa, tudo trabalhador que se envolveram na crime de minha filha, de trabalho, até hoje já se fazer nada.
He's saying that the Boston Public Schools is aware the incident was going on, and all this time later that the staff members at the school are no longer there.
E andando tudo foto de sangramento, de urina, de tudo que usa, andando vídeo que minha filha fez, ele mata a cabeça, corta o pescoço para sangue sair, para ele mata a cabeça, para ele morrer, para ele enterrado.
He has a lot of video and picture proof of the incident that occurred, and his son repeatedly has suicidal ideations just because he's suffering from what happened, and he's still wetting the bed and have violent outbursts.
E andando vídeo que essa sonha, para mim perguntar se mexe demais, essa sonha, essa briga com que segurança de escala dentro da cabeça.
And he continues to have dreams and recurring dreams of him engaged in fighting behavior with the officer and reliving that moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalo.
He's just looking for some justice. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Robert Jenkins.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Robert Jenkins. I'm wearing a different hat today, but I want to say one small thing about Madison Park. Superintendent, you were there last week for Freshman Orientation Week. I just sent you an email in regards to your team, the Community Advancement Team, both Capital Planning Team, City of Boston, and the school department, and a lot of other partners in giving a presentation to 80 parents. I've been there 10 years. The last 4 years of, the freshman orientation was one of the best. So definitely it was in the right direction. The hat I'm wearing tonight is I'm an IAG member for White Stadium, appointed by the mayor's office. And I was appointed there to give my objectivity on the White Stadium project. I am for the White Stadium project. As you know, I'm a sports official for basketball, football, which I've already had some scrimmages. I have a scrimmage this week at Tech Boston. So I know the fields, I know people's concerns, but Boston Latin and Latin Academy have homes. and they will be all right. But in the matter of that is that it's most important that White Stadium get renovated, because I scored my first ever touchdown in Madison Park history at White Stadium. My friends and I used to sneak in White Stadium when we lived in Roxbury. So White Stadium is very near and dear to me. I also work for the Parks and Recreation Department as a regional administrator / community engagement person for White Stadium. So I know the political landscape and I know the whole thing about White Stadium and Franklin Park. White Stadium is Franklin Park as itself and White Stadium is different from the Commons and different from, Central Park, because in the close proximity where people live at on Hutchins Street and all the surrounding streets, people use their cars to go to Elmer Lewis, to go to the park, sometimes to walk to the park. I know that landscape. Definitely is going to be a problem with traffic and transportation. But again, there are a number of IAG members like myself. There's 20 of us. We're working with city officials. We're working with city departments. Does work have to be done? Yes. But that stadium needs to be renovated. For over 30 plus years, one side of the stadium has never been renovated. We
30
used to
seconds.
play 4 games there. 4 high schools used to play games there. And I don't know about doing it now, but we could with security and stuff. But anyway, what a lot of people need to know, a lot of kids are not playing football. As Avery and them can tell you, the numbers are going low on football. They're combining schools. So where they're combining schools that don't have football or have those enough students to play,
Your
it
time
is
is up.
very imperative
very much.
that we fix White Stadium. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now transition to virtual testimonies. Please make sure you're signed into Zoom with the same name you used to sign up for public comment, and be prepared to unmute yourself and turn on your camera when it's your turn to testify. Please raise your virtual hand when I call your name. Our first group of speakers are Alexandra Oliver Davila, Mike Heichman, Edith Bazil, and Dorothy Fennell. Ms. Oliver Davila.
Hello. Sorry about that. Good evening, school
We can't hear
committee.
you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I couldn't get on. Good evening, superintendent. Good evening, school committee members. My name is Alexandra Oliver Davila, and I'm the executive director of Sociedad Latina, which is an out-of-school time youth development organization located in Roxbury, and I'm a resident of Rosendale. At Sociedad Latina, we have been concerned about cell phone use among teens for some time. We've seen the negative impacts of too much screen time, the harms of social media, including unhealthy comparison, misinformation, racism, self-harm, and cyberbullying. The rise of social media and big tech's algorithm, addictive design, has had serious impacts on youth wellness and mental health. Teenagers are more sad today than at any other time in our history. We also see how the lack of sleep from nighttime cell phone use is hurting young people, including decreased academic success, as well as depression. Kudos to BPS for having a no cell phone policy. That is a great start. When we surveyed youth from Sociedad Latina, they shared that although they are aware there is a policy, there is inconsistency in its implementation. This summer, Sociedad Latina implemented a new policy where youth had to put their phones away in a locked cell phone cabinet. We worked with families to ask them for their support in planning ahead with their teen. We assured them we would always have someone answering our main line in case they needed to get in touch with their teen. And we also assured youth that they would be able to contact their family should they need to. We had a wonderful summer. We also worked on teaching youth about the algorithm and how it works to get them addicted, and how big tech is targeting young people, harvesting and selling their information. We also talked about the positives of social media. Digital life is not going to go away, and it is not all bad. At Sociedad Latina, we believe that we need to support youth through education and helping them to come to their own conclusion and take agency over how they experience and use social media and technology. We have been focused on supporting youth to be digitally responsible and digitally well. I know BPS has several schools who have piloted the Yonder Pouch and have seen some great results. I think that is an option to seriously consider adopting across all schools. However, it is not enough. I'm advocating for BPS to make a deep financial investment for more education during the school day on the positives and negatives of living in a digital world, as well as tech ethics. We are no longer living in a digital divide, device divide, but rather a knowledge divide where youth of color are being left behind and we will have serious negative consequences in their future career options. BPS shouldn't be fully responsible for tackling this issue. Parents and guardians, you need to look at your own tech use. It's addictive for all of us, not just young people, and you need to role model what you want to see. I also encourage families not to get a phone until 8th grade. BPS, the time to act is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker is Mike Heichman.
Mike Heichman, Dorchester, Beja. A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. There are two evaluations of Miss Skipper. One, a self-evaluation by the superintendent and by our unelected school committee, and by an uninvited Beja who conducted its own survey of our membership. And what do we have? A tale of two school systems. At our last meeting, Mr. Cadet Hernandez asked his colleagues an excellent question. Why is his evaluation so divergent from the rest of his colleagues? He was the only member who was highly critical of the superintendent. My question, why are Ms. Skipper's self-evaluation and the school committee's evaluation so different from Beja's community evaluation? To quickly summarize, except for Mr. Cadet Hernandez, the school committee agrees with Ms. Skipper that you are doing a very good job and deserve a nice pay raise, while Beja's community evaluation concludes that you have failed our children. My own conclusion, strongly confirmed by Beja's community evaluation, is that we need an elected school committee and a new superintendent. My two most important reasons. One, you have aggressively increased racism and inequities. A few examples. From the very beginning of your misleadership, you fired Black and brown central office workers and replace them with those loyal to you. Dr. Charles Granson, the Chief Equity Officer, wrote you a letter expressing concern about the mistreatment of Black and brown central office workers. You fired him. When Dr. Casillas was our CEO, under the leadership of Dr. Granson, community equity roundtables discussions were held on a regular basis to discuss how different parts of the system would benefit from with an equity analysis. These meetings were excellent. Under your misleadership, CERT died. You have failed to use the racial equity tool to evaluate the effects of proposed policies. Without prior community involvement and without using the racial equity tool, you and the mayor aggressively attempted to move the O'Brien from the heart of the African-American community to White West Roxbury. Two, the spread of a toxic culture, which began at the very beginning of your regime and recently described in great detail by the release of Silence Speaks, 100+ voices beyond the trauma.
Thank you very much.
I'll send in my...
Yes, thank you. Next speaker is Edith Bazil.
Good evening. A time of fiscal abundance shows one's character and leadership. When you take care of the most vulnerable, you take care of everyone. Despite a watershed of multiple sources of funding, this administration showed a scarcity mindset, lacking vision and innovation for student improvement. No progress made, no audit showing why. McKinley schools, comprised primarily of Black students, are required to provide a hub of wraparound therapeutic support, but chronic absenteeism hovers around 80%, and 2/3 of its population dropped from enrollment, leaving most classrooms empty. McKinley schools provide no sense of worth, meaning, purpose, belonging, dignity, or opportunities for Black youth advancement, relying instead on metal detectors, random searches, cameras, seclusion, timeout rooms, physical restraints, and safety officers. Federal data shows current suicide rate of Black youth ages 10 to 19 increased by 54% compared to a 17% decline for white youth. Suicide rates for Black youth are increasing faster than any other racial or ethnic group. The district renamed McKinley after a legendary civil rights leader, but ignored constant pleas to address the mental health and restorative justice needs of its students. Staying silent makes this committee complicit in exacerbating McKinley students' trauma instead of investing in their future. This school committee and superintendent perpetuate the pattern of clustering Black students into chronically underperforming, underfunded, under-resourced, failing schools. The superintendent's evaluation process dodges community engagement by holding this process for the first time in the summer when no one is watching. And now, under the watchful eye of the mayor's office guiding this process, why is that? 7 school committee members' very divergent ratings were averaged in what appears to be a Likert scale. A Likert scale measures subjective opinions rather than employing data-driven criteria. Rating a superintendent proficient with 0 improvement in student outcomes at a time of abundant funding shows a lack of focus on our children, specifically Black students. Make it make sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next group of speakers are Dorothy Fennell, Maria Jimenez, Ted Loska, and Fran Harrington. Dorothy Fennell.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My name is Dorothy Fennell. I live directly across from the main entrance to White Stadium. I'm a mom to 3 BPS girls, K1 through 6th grade. They're all very excited for the first day of school. I'm also looking forward to all of their high school graduations in a redeveloped White Stadium. I'm very impacted by this project. I'm also very excited by this project, but more important for my excitement, I think that the school committee has a vested interest in supporting the stadium redevelopment. I believe in the power of government to enrich constituents' lives. I know that as a committee, you provide more than just education. You're wraparound care for families at all levels of the spectrum of needing services. I am thankful that there is a institution in our government in the city that is making sure that our children have social services and housing and 3 meals a day. So thank you for providing those to the BPS kids. As a taxpayer, property owner, and a mom, I'm looking out for all the BPS kids, and I want you to use my tax money in a way that doesn't have to pick one of the many services that you provide over another. I want you to be creative and looking for ways to leverage public-private partnerships to advance the services that you provide to the city. As a transportation planner, which is what I do. I think the key here is that, to me, White Stadium is more than just an asset redevelopment and a park improvement. I see it actually as a catalyst for rethinking mobility in my section of the city. I think that this is a part of the city that has been historically overlooked when it comes to opportunities, and that my neighbors have been given no other option but to drive. And I think that this focus on a larger car light access for larger events, be it for the stadium, for soccer, I think what you're actually enabling is solving transportation challenges where crash statistics are high, and it's very dangerous to be on bike or on foot. And I think the focus here is that the folks who are on bike and are on foot are the folks who can't drive. And that's my BPS kids, and that's all their classmates. I think what's really interesting about this project is that I myself have a two-parent working family. And it's a struggle with the stability that we have, even to get our kids to all the activities that they need to get to. When I look at the White Stadium project, what I see is there's going to be an urgency in making sure that there.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Maria Jimenez and Ted Lusk are not here, so we will go with Fred Harrington. With Fran. Fran Harrington.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome, thank you. Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm going to keep this very short. My name is Fran Harrington. I'm a BPS alumnus. I'm from the BLA class of 2002. I'm also a 20+ year resident of Jamaica Plain, and I just want to voice my support for the White Stadium renovation proposal. I believe that the student athletes of BPS deserve a world-class stadium, and I think this current proposal is the much realistic chance that we have to accomplish it, at least the 4 years that I've been part of this. So I would like to turn it over the rest of my time. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Our next speakers are Sarah Freeman, Ruby Reyes, Sky Ortiz, and Tony Da Rocha. Sarah Freeman is not in the meeting. Ruby Reyes.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruby Reyes, and I'm the Executive Director of the Boston Education Justice Alliance and a Dorchester resident. In June 2024, the Beja community organized a people's evaluation of Superintendent Mary Skipper. We plan to carry out this process annually to incorporate authentic community engagement practices. Close to 400 detailed and lengthy comments were included in the survey. Here are some of those voices. The intentional push out of Black and brown leaders have left a void in the district. The superintendent pushes a white-centered narrative and has erased the voices and input of Black people. Her racism is codified in the policies that accelerate opportunity gaps. The elimination of working groups and task forces is the opposite of involving stakeholders. When families have requested meetings with district officials above regional superintendent, they have been dismissed out of hand, referred to district staff who do not respond to phone calls or emails, and who will not schedule meetings. Family concerns about facilities, school climate, and school and regional leadership and more have gone ignored or worse, treated with dismissive contempt. The superintendent would rather spend the people's budget lining the pockets of publishing companies for a silver bullet solution than put time and money into the real solution. Hire enough qualified staff to effectively support students with all types of needs and give them enough time to do so. One of the most significant concerns and complaints about the superintendent is the absence of data in her reports. It becomes challenging to assess what is truly happening when information is not based on up-to-date collection or when certain data points are deliberately omitted. potentially obscuring supporting evidence for the information being presented. Working under this superintendent feels toxic. The stress levels are high and morale is low. The toxic environment affects mental health, leading to burnout, anxiety, and even physical health issues. Staff members who once loved their jobs now dread coming to work. The superintendent needs to commit resources to restorative justice in all schools, done effectively so that students who cause harm, including bullying, are held accountable for their actions and given the opportunity to make things as right as possible. Superintendent Skipper actively suppresses dissenting voices. She dismisses concerns, avoids engaging in meaningful dialogue, and often resorts to condescension. Parents who advocate for their children's needs find themselves ignored or brushed aside. Teachers who raise valid points are met with defensiveness. Teacher turnover is high, and BPS is unwilling to recognize their role in turnover. Teachers do not want to work in these conditions and with no support. Many teachers are doing the job of multiple teachers. It is inequitable for adults and students. Those are just some of the quotes. And it's just really disheartening that our school committee isn't reaching out and having a community engagement process for parents, students, and educators.
Next speaker is Sky Ortiz. Sky Ortiz, please unmute yourself and turn on the camera.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So first, I want to thank you, Mary Skipper, for your beautiful speech earlier. Next, I want to thank the Boston School Committee for this public comment opportunity. My name is Sky Ortiz, and I'm the parent to 3 students at the Russell Elementary School in Dorchester, Sienna Nee, Rhea Nee, and Giabella Nee. And this public comment includes the following 4 recommendations. The first recommendation is that all schools should be directed by the district to dignify the concept of a mission statement and unduly promote their own definite mission statement that will further stand as the emblematic insignia of the school's educational purpose that is exclusive but pronounced of a prevailing transmission that mirrors the district's mission statement at the universal level. The second recommendation is for the urgency of a rapid revision of the Boston Public Schools Code of Conduct, amended with the incorporation of an additional section to the pre-existing 14.4 entitled Students for the Department of Children and Families. These students are perceivably the most vulnerable population, even over those with disabilities in advancement, due to priorities of protective risk. There's a dire need for targeted support for this small group of students in order to stop and prevent any infringement of these students' rights by reason in relation to Boston Public Schools and to provide a life to be lived quality education and experience. The third recommendation is a revision to the attendance and punctuality policy that includes a statement of the recognition and required advising to each student to be respected and treated as the sovereign individual that they are, and that they are only confined, unless otherwise, to the construction of a learning system with the dynamics of a realistic educational worldview, open source system structured by a student-success-based performance model approach. And my last recommendation, the fourth recommendation, is for the employment of an organization employee performance overview at every elementary school, which includes a reassessment of all staff understanding of the Boston Public Schools District visions, goals, policies, and procedures, along with required singular monitoring periods to review staff ability to fulfill their role by aspects including but not limited to conduct and attained progress.
30 seconds.
Plus, and lastly, the implementation of live streaming audio for all school communication interactions and all forms of correspondences. such as all school grounds, classrooms, meetings, telephones, and web active monitoring management to positively impact and deplete further discrimination and marginalization. That may limit students with the Department of Children and Families, but also expand all students to be enrolled in an inclusive, diverse public education system. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tony DeRocha. Oh, yes.
Good evening. My name is Tony DeRocha, recently retired BPS teacher and coach. I'm just in favor of White Stadium renovation. I was a student at Boston Tech and I ran track and cross country there, and I've been a coach BPS for many years, as well as college level and youth level. Again, I understand the importance of keeping the stadium as a public entity, but I've also been involved in many public-private partnerships and how they can work together. But the key is to make sure that we have everything in writing so the community can see the benefits for both. But we also know that the city the size of Boston, many times what we say we're going to do doesn't really happen. So it's important that when we have an opportunity to get funding from private organizations as well as public organizations, to make sure that we utilize it correctly to benefit. We have a world-class cross-country course, but we have a stadium and a track that is one of the worst in the state. Nobody wants to come here and compete against Boston Public Schools because we have lousy facilities. We have an opportunity to have a world-class facility that our students deserve, but most importantly, also having access for our community members. I remember as a student sneaking into the stadium just to train because it was closed. But with this new stadium and the option to have it open till 10 p.m. for the community use, that's going to be a benefit. Yes, would I like to see it stay public? Yes. Will it stay public? Yes. But there are many benefits. We have to look at the benefits and to make sure they outweigh the negatives. So again, my support for White Stadium renovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair, that concludes our public comment.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Parvix, and thank you to all of those who spoke with us this evening and shared your perspectives. Your testimony is very important to us. Our first action item this evening is the grants for approval totaling $4,565,422. We've made an adjustment to the grants tonight, so the very first two that are on the list are not going to be taken into consideration this evening. I'd like to turn it over to the superintendent for any comments.
Great, thank you, Chair. We'll revisit those at a later date. You see, as you'd expect toward the end of the summer, a large amount of grants to go in support of our work. You see everything here from those that will support health and wellness, playground projects. There's one on cybersecurity, one on JRTC. These are just, really all of the things that are supporting programming that's getting up and running for the fall. Some fall into the bucket of maintenance, so they're being re-upped, and they were previous grants, and then there's others that are new. So I think you'll see the details in the grant packet, and there are people here from respective departments to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I'll now open it up to questions and comments from the committee. Mr. Tran?
Just a very short question. The English for new Bostonians, $30,000.
Mr. Tran, can you speak on the mic?
Ah, I'm sorry. I thought I had a tiger. I didn't read this, but anyway, all right. Yeah, again, the English for new Bostonians, the $30,000. It looks small, but it's just a quick question. where is that going to be distributed or directed to?
So they currently, thank you, Member Tran. They currently have sites. So this is one of those grants that allows us to continue. Winship is like a good example in the Brighton Alston area that they do. So this is a annual grant that we typically get with them.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? No.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
yeah, just Superintendent, I'm delighted to see three playground fundings, all coming from the Community Preservation Act.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that the group that, oversees that funding is putting it back into 3 playgrounds, 3 different schools, 3 different parts of the city. Love to see that.
Yeah, we really appreciate their support.
Okay, all right. If there's no further discussion, I'll now entertain a motion to approve the grants as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Is there any objection to approving the grants by unanimous consent? Hearing none, the grants are approved. Our second action item this evening is the approval of in-kind donations with a total estimated value of $65,995. I'll now invite the superintendent to offer any final comments.
Wonderful. I see Tony Beatrice in the crowd as well, but this is the Lang Lang Foundation has always been great support to us. This is in support of many of our music programs. And so we would strongly encourage the support of the school committee in thanking and receiving this in kind.
Great, thank you. I'll now open it up to questions and comments from the committee.
I love this.
Yeah. so do I.
I'm sorry, that's a mess.
That's great, thank you. Right. Hearing none, I'll now entertain a motion to approve the in-kind donations as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Is there any objection to approving the in-kind donations by unanimous consent? Hearing none, the in-kind donations are approved as presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our third action item this evening is the approval of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, MSSC, annual membership dues of $8,635. Now I'd like to turn it over to the superintendent for any final comments.
This is just your normal member dues, so we would encourage you to vote for it so that we can continue to be a part of MASC.
Great, thank you. I'll now open it up to questions and comments from the committee. Okay.
Madam Chair, may I just say I want to thank the Mass Associations of School Committee because they actually provide training for all of us.
Yep.
As we join ongoing training, and in particular, their executive director, Glenn Kuchar, who is always on speed dial, every
Yes,
chair of this
yes.
committee for open meeting law guidance, all sorts of other training and guidance, best practices of
Yes.
school committees across the state. Particular thanks to the executive director, Glenn Kuchar, who is extraordinarily helpful to all of us.
Absolutely.
Just because I wasn't here when y'all voted on this last year, so is this something that we vote every year
Yes,
for the school
it's an
start?
annual.
Okay, and is this the only association that we're a part of that has some sort of membership? I'm
Council
sure
Great
not.
City
So Great City Schools.
Council's Great City Schools.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
the other one. Okay, thank you.
Great. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the Massachusetts Association of School Committees annual membership dues as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Is there any objection to approving the motion by unanimous consent? Hearing none, the motion is approved as presented. Thank you. Okay. Our final action item this evening is the superintendent's summative performance evaluation and rating for school year 2023-24. As you may remember from our previous meeting, Dr. Alkin shared the committee's final evaluation of Superintendent Skipper's performance, resulting in an overall rating of proficient. I am thankful to Dr. Alkins and Mr. O'Neill for guiding the crucial process. I also want to extend my thanks to all members for their valuable individual feedback, which I know the superintendent and her team have studied closely and will use to guide our work moving forward. Now I'd like to invite the superintendent to provide any final remarks.
Great, thank you, Chair. And so just to thank you, Vice Chair, Dr. Alkins, and all of the committee members for your work on the evaluation. I know it's very time consuming and it's important because it gives critical feedback to myself and to our team about what we need to be focusing on and doing better, but also recognizing the progress and the work that the teams have been doing. I'm really looking forward to the fall retreat when we can talk about our goals and the resetting of our goals. I think that will be very informative for us to all calibrate and know what our work is for the coming months. So just thank you very much. I continue to be very excited and very humbled to be in the position that I am here. It is one I take with the utmost, just the utmost energy, and every single day I wake up to do my best here and to ask of our team to do the best here for every single student in our district, and to especially for our students that we regularly talk about, our Black and Brown students, our special education, our multilingual learner with and without disability, who historically in the BPS that has not been the case for. And so we will continue with that same energy and focus as we enter year 3 of my superintendency, to continue to make progress, take feedback, and become a continuous improver. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now open it up to questions and comments from the committee.
Sure, I would like to jump in first.
Fran?
Thank you, thank you for your indulgence. First of all, I would very much like to express my admiration and heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Alkins and Vice Chair Mike O'Neill for the summation of our evaluations. You did such a professional job. I wish I have that kind of skill to do the same thing. But I do see the value of your summation. The important thing here is that I've read all of each individual member's evaluation of the superintendent throughout my work life. I have performed a myriad of performance evaluations of staff and of candidates, stuff like that. And I understand the different viewpoints and the different suggestions, different ideas, different visions each evaluator bring to the process. As a group, we are all looking at the same set of data, the same set of parameters, and we are evaluating based on the same set of goals. But then we come up with different ratings, whether that tells how much objectivity and subjectivity that we bring to the process. There is no way that we will ever be in concert with each other on the process. I myself personally, I like to state for the record, I do understand the public process, the so-called public performance evaluation that we heard a couple of days ago, or even today. But I will say here, my support for the superintendent will remain strong, regardless of how we are perceived as a public body, whether we are appointed or so-called unelected. But the work that I have seen subjectively, based on the same set of data, objectively based on the same set of data, here I am, expressing myself again. The support is there, and the support will stay until I see otherwise. Thank you.
Comments? the comments. Yeah. Again, I just want to say to you, Superintendent, thank you very much for, I know, the very hard work that you've done. And as Mr. Tron says, when you're trying to serve this many people, there will always be many different responses to what works and what isn't working. I think the most important thing is to acknowledge that we have a lot of great needs, but striving to try to meet them all and improve in those areas where we are falling short is critical. And I thank you for your commitment to doing that. Look forward to the retreat in the fall, because I think we all have some work to do now as you enter into year 3, to look both at how we work together, what our goals are, and to look at ways that we can make sure that we are hearing from the vast diversity of our student body, parents, community, so that we can look at how all of those voices can be part of what we are attempting to do next on behalf of the students of Boston. But again, thank you. And again, thank you to both you, Dr. Alkins and Mr. O'Neill, for taking us through this process. And we will continue in the fall. Okay. So if there's nothing further, I'll now entertain a motion to approve the superintendent's school year 2023-2024 summative performance evaluation as presented, and provide the superintendent with a final overall performance rating of proficient. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Ms. Parvex, will you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Dr. Alkins,
Yes.
Miss Lima Barbosa,
Yes.
Mr. Tran,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
and Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
It's passed unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Parvex, and thank you again, Superintendent, for your steadfast dedication to BPS. The committee looks forward to working together with you and your team to make this a great year for all of our students. Now we'll move on to reports.
Madam Chair.
Oops, sorry.
I'm sorry, just point of information,
Yep.
if that's okay. Just because since we took this vote, I think it's important for us to state publicly that under the superintendent's contract, she is now eligible and will receive a 2.5% salary increase. I just think it's important we say that out
Yes.
publicly, but that was contingent upon receiving at least a proficient rating. So that is all laid out in her contract.
Yes.
So just wanted
Thank
to,
you.
I felt it's important to say that
Yes.
publicly after the vote.
Make sure all of us also receive 5% increase.
Right. Certainly. Anyways. We'll now move on to reports. Our first presentation this evening is the policy revision recommendations. I'll now invite Deputy Superintendent of Operations, Dr. Sam DePina, to please step forward with his presentation. While he's getting settled, I'd like to invite the superintendent to give some opening remarks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair. So tonight we're making recommendations for revisions of 2 school committee policies, the student information policy and the school naming policy. We're submitting these changes to the school committee for your review and consideration for a future vote. These revisions are part of our regular review of policies to ensure that we're consistent with current laws and district practice. And we expect that this year we will be bringing additional proposed updates to the committee monthly or as needed going forward. On September 16th, 2020, this body voted to approve the student information policy. The policy was developed during the summer of 2020 by a superintendent's working group consisting of 15 internal and external members. On December 31st of 2020, the Massachusetts legislature approved the police reform law. Following the passage of the legislation, the student information policy needed to be updated to be in compliance with the new law. Dr. DePina will present the proposed revisions in more detail, but I do want to make clear that these revisions do not change the information that we are required to report to BPD. So again, these changes do not change any information that we're required to report to BPD. It actually, however, reduces the information shared between BPS and BPD because BPS staff are no longer permitted to write reports that are stored in the BPD database. These revisions ensure our policy reflects the updated legislation. The city of Boston also recently updated its policy on the naming of public buildings. We're proposing these policy revisions so that the school committee's policy passed in 1998 aligns with the city's policy. The revisions also clarify the engagement process and delineate naming decisions that require a school committee vote and decisions that can be approved by the superintendent. Deputy Superintendent of Operations, Sam DePina, has been working on this for a long time. So he's going to be here tonight to answer any questions relative to either of the policy recommendations. Thank you. Dr. DePina.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee, and members of the public joining us this evening. This evening, we bring forward two policy revision recommendations. The first is the policy regarding preparing and sharing student incident reports and other student information with Boston Police, and the second is a school naming policy. As a reminder, these revisions are part of our regular review of policies to ensure they are up to date with current realities. The student, as Superintendent mentioned, the student information policy was developed on summer of 2020 and approved by this committee in September of 2020. The objective of the policy at the time was to ensure students are safe in school and at school-related activities, while also reducing the number of police reports that are written for school-related incidents that may instead be addressed by the Code of Conduct, and to ensure that protected student information is not shared through a police report. The policy outlines procedures related to incident reporting and information sharing between Boston Public Schools and BPD. The recommended policy revisions we bring before you this evening are made to bring this policy into compliance with the Massachusetts General Laws Act relative to equity, justice, and accountability in law enforcement, commonly referred to as the Police Reform Bill, which took effect July 1st, 2021. Under the Police Reform Bill, the type of incidents that have been and will continue to be required by law to report to the BPD have not changed, as Superintendent mentioned. However, the Office of Safety Service employees can no longer write reports that are stored within Boston Police Department. This slide highlights the proposed revisions based on the updated legislations. Most importantly, it eliminates language referring to Boston school police officers and clarifies that BPS staff are no longer allowed to write Boston police incident reports. It also documents that what the incident report writing expectations are for the Office of Safety Service staff, and indicates what may or may not be included in an incident log. The policy revision also outlines an updated process for notifying families following an incident. It's important to note that following any type of incident, school-based staff and central office staff will continue to provide supports to students and families. Supports will be done through our multi-tiered systems of support that are in place, through social emotional learning, counseling services, mentoring services, as well as individual support from our school psychologists, family liaisons, and community connectors who will work closely with families in the community after school hours. The original policy called for a working group to convene regularly to review data regarding the reports filed with BPD and ones internal to Boston Public Schools. Due to the change in law, BBS employees are no longer have special police powers to write Boston police reports. As a district, we have also decided to cease the writing of our internal reports known as SSR1s. As a result of these changes, we recommend the removal of this working group oversight. A working group may be reconvened in the future to revisit the policy should state legislation change. Second policy revision recommended is for Superintendent Circular number 4, which covers our policy around school naming and procedures. This policy was last voted on by the school committee on September 16th, 1998, just to put it into context, a very long time ago. In recent years, we've seen an increase in school communities requesting name changes to schools and spaces as indicated on the slide. The policy revision presented this evening aligns with the City of Boston's updated police policy on naming buildings and differentiates between naming a school, naming a physical space within the building, in naming a building. The proposed revisions include how the naming of a physical building needs to be in compliance with the city's policy for naming municipal buildings, how the naming of a school community needs approval from this school committee, the naming of a space within a building can be approved by the superintendent and/or designee and does not require school committee approval. The revised policy also clarifies the engagement process required prior to bringing a proposed name change to the school committee or superintendent. Thank you for allowing me the time to outline these two policy recommendations, and I'll turn it over to you for questions.
Thank you, Dr. DePina, and thank you to your entire team for this work, these critical issues. I'll now open it up to the committee for questions and comments.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Can you clarify what was the thought process, unless it's just following what the city of Boston's rules are that we're trying to align in terms of the name of special rooms? Like, why is the committee's not, well, why are we proposing that the school committee does not vote on that?
Great question. So the reason why we're proposing that is because a lot of schools like to name spaces, things in schools, such as auditorium chairs, outdoor spaces, rooms, gymnasiums, and a lot of the libraries even. And we're seeing more and more schools wanting to do that to reflect more current realities and more historical context, if you will, as well, or name them after people that worked for Boston Public Schools in the past. So we begin so many of these requests, and the process for doing those are very lengthy and thorough. And it takes a lot of time to, one, do those procedures, and two, to have you all come and hear a lot of those takes up a lot of valuable time that we have, and it does compete with other priorities we have in the district, and sometimes it's hard to get these on the calendar. So we felt that it was appropriate that the superintendent has that ability to just focus on those namings, but the bigger namings of buildings and spaces should comply with the city policies as well as school committee approval.
Is there still some sort of community engagement prior of the, okay.
Yes, the policy around like how they, the proposals come forward is the same, but the vote, the authorization is just a little different.
Okay. For the last point, you say you're proposing clarification of the engagement process required prior to bringing a proposed name change to the school committee or superintendent. So you're saying that you all will come to us and the superintendent to explain us what the community process will be before actually giving us the proposal? Is that?
The draft language is in the draft proposal that you have in your folders. So it's there, spelled out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Citron.
Me again. I'm referring to page 4 of the student information policy. I understand that the BPS safety services employees now do not have the whatever that kind of power is. And I do also understand that the Boston Police Department will have the sole responsibility as well as, you know, the discretion in bringing charges against a student.
Yes, that's correct.
Despite the fact that the BPS service employees may have some other information that may be in opposition of that. Is there a process, say, restorative justice included? A
Yes.
process that would somehow we can interject, or the BPS employees, service employee can interject or can somehow influence the BPD decision in bringing charges against a student just based on a certain same set of. I've seen different interpretation of different personnel, even among lawyers, you know, regarding an incident, whether it is something that is indictable or is not. Which right here I'm reading this looks like, you know, everything rests with the police, despite the fact that students are doing that, those hours are within our control.
Sure. So my response is going to be a balanced one because yes, there's an opportunity and a mechanism for our school staff and our safety specialists to advocate on behalf of students depending on the gravity of the incident. However, depending on the level of the incident, for example, if a weapon is found or a firearm is recovered, clearly we have to just let go and let police dictate what happens there. But for the more minor infractions, there is a dialogue that occurs between our staff and Boston Police that we try to defer students to more restorative practices, handle those infractions through the code of conduct, and then provide supports through multi-tier system support, mentoring, counseling, and those pieces. So there is an opportunity to engage with BPD, and they have the final decision, but we do have a voice in what happens as well, to an extent.
Okay. Thank you.
You are.
Even though I do not see much of a support for the students, I'm still flabbergasted at how police departments are dealing with students' issues. I've seen a lot. I'll give you an example. Well, marijuana was once a forbidden type of controlled substance. But let's say if a student has some of that, a little of that, in his or her backpack, is that subject to police or BPD service employees requiring of disclosure? That contrary to the practice, some had already been done in that way.
Yeah, marijuana has been decriminalized. So what happens now is there's just referral to our substance abuse programs, as counseling with the students about their use and trying to redirect them from that. But it's nothing criminal that the Boston Police would penalize students for.
So I'm sorry to take a little time, but this is the area that I strongly have a heart in, given the fact that I may be doing something regarding that. How much of a weight can the process of restorative justice, including mediation, arbitration, whatever, what not we have there, that would influence the police decision?
It's hard to say because we can just recommend what we believe is fair on behalf of the students, and our schools and our school-based staff and central staff do advocate for students to the extent we can, because clearly we do not want to criminalize our students. We don't want to get our students in the school to prison pipeline. We're very cognizant of that, and a lot of our policy changes that we made over the years do reflect that. However, the decision on whether to move forward to prosecute or not does unfortunately lie in the hands of Boston Police, but we do advocate and speak up for our students, especially when we know that they can benefit from being redirected from the school to prison pipeline.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions? No other questions? All right. Thank you. The committee looks forward to taking action on this recommendation at the September 11th meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. DePina.
Our second and final report this evening is a presentation on the White Stadium renovation and lease authorization. I'll now invite Chief of Operations Dion Irish and Senior Director of Athletics Avery Esdale to please step forward with their presentation. While Mr. Irish and Mr. Esdale are getting settled, I'd like to invite the superintendent to give opening remarks.
Thank you, Chair. So tonight, tonight, BPS and the city are here to provide a brief update on the White Stadium and ask the school committee to grant me the authorization to enter into a lease agreement with a partner, Boston Unity Soccer, for the renovation of White Stadium. The finalization of the lease agreement will allow the city's public facilities department to move forward with the demolition of part of the existing stadium this fall. As you know, the stadium is still in active use despite its current state of disrepair. It is inaccessible and lacks adequate locker rooms, restrooms, and indoor spaces. The field and track need replacement. Our students deserve much better. The new White Stadium will provide an outstanding home for BPS athletics. The new community space, strength training, locker rooms, physical therapy spaces will be a resource for all student athletes. In partnership with the city and Boston Unity Soccer, our goal is to renovate White Stadium into a modern, multi-service athletic complex for our schools and the larger community. White Stadium is a vital part of our larger strategy to enhancing athletic programs citywide. I'm going to now turn it over to the city's Chief of Operations, Dion Irish, and BPS Senior Director of Athletics, Avery Asdale, and they'll provide a brief update on the status of the project, the community engagement process, and the proposal before the committee tonight.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, Chair Robinson and other esteemed members of the school committee. As was said before, my name is Dion Irish, Chief of Operations for the City of Boston, and I've lived on both sides of Franklin Park and White Stadium for most of my life. So very happy to be here tonight. We'll try to be efficient but thorough with this presentation. So today, in partnership with BPS Athletics and the Mayor's Office, we are excited to present the transformative proposal for the renovation of White Stadium, envisioning it as a premier athletic hub for BPS students. Over the past 2 years, I've been closely involved in the development of this project, and I'm thrilled to share our plans for revitalizing White Stadium through a generational investment in BPS athletics. Today, we'll discuss the merits of the project and the partnership model that we're proposing, the extensive community engagement efforts, and the next steps in our planning process. Our vision is for White Stadium to be more than just a sports facility. We see it as a vibrant hub for athletic experience, community gatherings, and cultural events. Renovating White Stadium is not a new idea, and this was mentioned earlier. Previous administrations have tried for decades, but were stymied by the scale of the investment needed and different visions of the stadium's future. And most of those attempts in the past did also try to leverage private funding. Our approach prioritizes and expands access to the stadium for both BPS students and community through a partnership model that aligns with our goals. Now, Avery Edsdale, our Senior Director for Athletics, who has led the visioning sessions for this renovation, will now walk you through how this proposal will benefit the BPS athletics program.
Good evening, school committee members. Happy New Year. As the data on the slide illustrates, our team worked tirelessly to provide diverse sport options for our students. However, White Stadium, our primary facility for BPS athletics, no longer meets the evolving needs of our staff and students. The existing conditions at White Stadium directly impact our students' experiences. Our athletics department operates from the facility despite its shortcomings, which include outdated infrastructure and lack of necessary resources. To truly expand our offerings and increase student participation, we need a modernized and renovated stadium. White Stadium's current challenges include limited programming hours. We only operate currently from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on weekdays. This limits our ability to host events like our city championships, track meets, and our facilities are not ADA compliant. This means that public restrooms and water fountains are extremely limited. Given the stadium hasn't seen significant investments in decades, it's clear we needed a private partner whose vision aligned with ours. Our goal remains for White Stadium to be BPS-owned facility with private partnership support for upkeep and investment. Our renovation planning began with visiting sessions last spring and summer that included input from students, coaches, administrators, and key partners to our department to ensure that the project proposal focuses on BPS student needs. We developed the following vision: expanding stadium hours from 8 to 15 hours daily, increasing BPS and programmable hours from 250 to 900 annually, upgrading both the exterior and interior world-class 8-lane track on the exterior, renovated new basketball courts and tennis courts, improved walking paths, and expanded green space. Renovating our indoor spaces to things that we didn't have before, which included study areas, indoor training center, modernized lockers, and facilities open to the community. And it was important that these facilities be ADA compliant, so all students of all skills will have the ability to practice and participate at the stadium as well. Chief Irish will now go through the details of our partnership.
Thanks, Avery. In structuring this partnership, we prioritize BPS's use of White Stadium. This slide illustrates a typical week at the stadium. 90% of the time during a game week would be dedicated to BPS and community use. The private partner would lease specific areas for up to 20 NWSL games per year. That includes championship games and ensures the substantial access for BPS. Beyond prioritizing public access, our partnership brings additional benefits to BPS and the community that were advocated for during the community engagement process, including new funding sources such as the initial capital investment, annual lease payments, and professional maintenance. Legal agreements codifying community benefits, including job opportunities, internships, and mentorships for MWBE businesses, local enterprises, and BPS students. Opening amenities to support our community events at White Stadium, establishing a neighborhood council to provide ongoing feedback on stadium programming and operations, designing for minimal noise and light impact, increased safety and environmental sustainability, aiming to make White Stadium one of the only 3 carbon neutral stadiums in the country. These commitments are detailed in the Boston Planning Board and Development Board memo as a part of the Article 80 Large Project Development Review, ensuring that they are legally binding. Our main stance is that this BPS could not deliver this state-of-the-art amenity and upkeep them without the support of a private partner. Our proposal is shaped by extensive community engagement, which included 50 public meetings, 900 public comments, small group briefings with stakeholders, including the Impact Advisory Group, multiple city commissions such as the Boston Landmarks Commission, the BPDA, the Parks Commission have reviewed and unanimously approved the project. We will continue the dialogue through ongoing community meetings and other communication channels to key stakeholders to keep everyone informed and involved. We are briefing you today as the next phase in this process because the school committee must authorize the superintendent to negotiate a favorable lease agreement with the Boston Unity soccer partners alongside the city and BPS leaders like Avery. It's important to emphasize that we have committed that no demolition or construction will begin until a lease agreement is signed that aligns with the commitments we've shared publicly. This slide clarifies the lease boundaries. The red section represents the area Boston Unity soccer partners will lease for up to 20 NWSL games per year, while the larger area outlined in black remains accessible for BPS and public use when games are not in session.
This diagram consolidates the feedback from BPS, community members, park experts, illustrating design that provides state-of-the-art facilities and seamlessly integrates with the Franklin Park landscape, enhancing green space and reducing barriers around the stadium. We have made arrangements to ensure uninterrupted athletic opportunities for students during construction. In collaboration with coaches, we've identified relocation sites and additional amenities to meet teams' needs. BLA girls soccer will practice at Malcolm X Field and play games at Moakley Park. BLA and BLS football, BLA football will practice at Playstead. BLS football will practice at Clemente and the Fens with games at alternative locations. Track and field practice, we're working on enabling English High School to host track and field practice with no impact to cross country this fall. Our BPS tennis team looks to have expanded use at the Franklin Park Shattuck tennis courts. We received questions about the long-term homes for BLA and BLS football, which traditionally play a total of 10 games at White Stadium. And so we've committed to the teams that they'll be able to play marquee games at the stadium at a latter part of the season. And the city will find long-term homes for these two teams.
Thanks. So we are incredibly proud to stand behind this project today as it will provide a number of opportunities for BPS students and the community. Coaches and students have long awaited these upgrades, and we believe that this vision and partnership deliver on these aspirations. We respectfully seek your vote to move forward, ensuring that in just 2 years, our students will have access to the state-of-the-art athletic hub that they can proudly call their own. Leaders from BPS, the mayor's office, and our legal team will be here to answer questions after this, but I do ask one request, if we could also allow our attorney, Simon DeBosi, just to say a few words before we take questions.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sammy Nabolsi. I've been counsel to the city of Boston on the White Stadium project since March 2023, representing the city both in the ongoing litigation involving the project, permitting of the project, and also the lease and other agreement negotiations. If there are any questions about the structure of the transaction or permitting or the litigation, I'm happy to answer those. I just wanted to give a couple remarks and an update. Earlier during public comment, you may have heard reference to an ongoing lawsuit involving the White Stadium project, and I suspect you will have received or will receive a written comment letter detailing the lawsuit and also asking this committee not to take any action until the lawsuit is resolved. So I just want to take a moment to give a status update on that litigation so the committee is aware of where that stands. There was a case filed by the Emerald Necklace Conservancy and a number of individual plaintiffs in February of this year. And with the filing of the complaint, there was also a motion for a preliminary injunction that was filed seeking to prevent the city from moving forward with any permitting, any contracting, any lease negotiations regarding the White Stadium project until the conclusion of the lawsuit. The preliminary injunction motion was fully briefed. We had a hearing. At the end of March, a judge of the Superior Court issued a 32-page decision denying the motion for preliminary injunction and finding that on all of the legal issues raised by the plaintiffs, they are unlikely to succeed on the merits of any of their claims, some of them involving the applicability of Article 97, and then the others involving whether or not the project complies with the will of a Boston philanthropist named George Robert White, which funded the initial construction, I suppose, of White Stadium back between 1949 and 1951. Even though that litigation is technically still open, given that prior decision, the city of Boston feels very confident that we'll be successful in the litigation. And in any event, there's an outside trial date set for March 2025. We are currently in the fact-finding stage of that case. But most importantly, there was a specific ask to the judge at that time, prevent further permitting, prevent further lease negotiations, prevent further contracts. All of those requests were denied. And so there's really no reason why any public bodies need to wait, given the lawsuit. And I think as evidence of that, of course, several other public bodies and commissions have, as Chief Irish pointed out, unanimously approved this project, obviously before the school committee has approved the lease. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, you're out of order. Excuse me.
It is false. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, it's,
Not how it works. If you're going to make.
I'm sorry, you're out of order.
Something that's not.
Excuse me, you're out of order.
We weren't told that we would have brought our words. I'm a plaintiff.
You were here for public comment. The public comment period is over. Thank you.
And you guys deserve to know the truth before you make any decisions. And I'm a BPS parent, I have a right to speak.
You have a right to speak during public comment. Thank you.
But what he's saying is not true. I'm a plaintiff, so I know what's going on. You guys deserve to know the truth and.
Should we take a brief recess? We're going to take a brief recess. Thanking you all for your update and now opening it up to the committee for questions and comments. So.
Go ahead.
I'm processing
Okay.
because now I forgot all the. Thank you, Chief. Very excited to see y'all here today for this proposal. I'm just curious on what the responses have been on the different concerns when it comes to the environment, right? We're hearing about the trees. I just wanted to sort of, if you could answer that, because I know in the presentation it's not there. Just for transparency, that would be good for us to know, at least for me to know. If that helps. Like because I know like one of the things that you noted, I just closed the slides, was one of the three only stadiums. What's the term? I don't have the notice. I think.
State of the art of.
No, about.
Carbon neutral?
Yes, carbon
Carbon
neutral,
neutral.
thank you. So I know that is one benefit. Are there any other benefits or anything that we're doing to make sure that we're not creating more damage, especially with the climate crisis that is ongoing right now? I just want to know how we're addressing that holistically in this proposal.
So I'm also gonna ask my colleague Luke to come forward and help with some more of the details, but yeah, there are many positive attributes to this project, and it has really like been improved over time based on a lot of the feedback we've gotten. So like, let's talk about like the work that we've done with Reed Hildebrand and how we've aligned it.
Yeah,
Better with.
definitely.
If you don't have all the answers today, that's fine. You can always follow up, but just.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for the question. So, we worked with the Reed Hildebrand team, who was the masterminds behind the Franklin Park Action Plan, to really reconfigure the design of the stadium to better respect many of the historic elements of Franklin Park. So, for instance, there used to be a bean-sized building that was in the playset area that had many of the programming for the team store, and many of the food and beverage areas. Through community feedback and through the work with the Reed Hildebrand team, that programming space has been removed and been confined within the stadium itself. We've actually been able to give back over an acre of green space to Franklin Park, which is the first time in 75 years we've been able to do that. So that's really great part of this project. Another aspect of the project that we're happy with the redesign is respecting many of those historic sightlines of Franklin Park. So there's a historic view from the overlook looking down into the playstead. We removed the building structure in order to respect that sightline and reconfigured the stadium to respect the north-south axis of Franklin Park itself. So many of the community meetings that we held in the work with the Reed Hildebrand team has really been beneficial for the project, because we've been able to preserve all of the BPS programming, which is the key of this project, but also respect many of the elements of Franklin Park itself.
Thank you, Luke.
And I'll add, before I turn it over to Sam, there's still ongoing work that we need to do, especially around like transportation.
Yes.
And the plans are coming along well and will be codified in our transportation access plan, as well as refining our plans on how we protect during those times when there is a game, the resident parking, as well as parking within Franklin Park itself.
And just one more thing, and I'm only commenting on this because very close to this document, but I think in the materials that were provided to the school committee, there is the BPDA board memorandum. The significance of the BPDA board memorandum is then turned into a binding cooperation agreement with the development team, which is the soccer team, and the city, and the Parks Department is going to be involved with that as well. In the BPDA board memo, it actually talks about a number of additional environmental mitigation
Right.
measures as a result of the project. I'll highlight three really important ones. One, there's a commitment, even though the transportation plan is still coming together, to convert to electric shuttles at some point, because shuttle service is an aspect of the transportation plan. The second is the establishment of a tree bank. You've probably heard that as a result of the stadium, there's going to be demolition or removal of some trees, including invasives. And there's a commitment to replace by actual tree trunk size, as opposed to just one by one, the tree canopy in Franklin Park. And that's a commitment both from the city and the team to establish this tree bank, so that there will be a caliper inch per caliper inch tree replacement of tree canopy. And then the third, of course, is there's a commitment from the team to create a surcharge on ticket sales that will go directly into investments into Franklin Park and improvements to Franklin Park. And those are all detailed in that BPDA board memo.
And if I could just add, another one of the important community benefits to this project is there's going to be a $500,000 annual community benefits fund with a 3% annual increase each year. And this $500,000 will be dispersed over 4 pillars. One of those pillars is investments within Franklin Park. One is within youth sports and local youth sports programming. The third is local businesses that surround the park, economic development of those local businesses. And the fourth is the health and wellness of the Black and brown communities who live around Franklin Park. And so this commitment is just another one of the major economic benefits that the team is providing that will be directly reciprocated right into the community.
Thank you. I've ran community process as a former ONS liaison. So I totally understand why we need to listen to abutters and to folks that are going to be impacted by it. I'm also a Burke alum, barely had a stadium, barely had anything, and I played sports. So I am excited of the idea of the renovation, but I also understand concerns when we talk about privatization. In good faith, I'm hoping that we're doing this in good faith. And if there are concerns or people continue to have the same questions, my feedback is always like, try to bring those answers right in the front of the conversation that we're having. So that's one thing. I appreciate the slide in terms of how we're prioritizing BPS usage of the space. I fought really hard for the student union at UMass Amherst to be the renovated or on the new one to be 100% for students because it was, well, not mine anymore, but it was our student fee that was paying for that. So I really hope that we can maintain that, whatever the system is, whatever the calendar tool, all of that needs to be something that we need to bring back once y'all have that conversation. I'm also curious to know, does the BPS community somewhat have access to the space that we're gonna lease? Like, what does that look like? Because it is a nice idea. I would love to have experience as a soccer player at Burke to see a women's soccer team playing and not have to go all the way to Gillette. I totally get that. I would love to see nice things in my neighborhood, but would love to understand if BPS community, especially the students, also have access, even if it's limited, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, I think from my seat, those are things that I always think about. I mean, I think when I look at Boston, the opportunities that others come into the city to participate in, I think we should make sure that we're making sure they're accessible to our students and our kids. I know in our discussions, the Unity Group has discussed ticket incentives for people in the neighborhood, the local people to the stadium. But I think from my seat, that'd be something we want to push at another level to make sure that our kids have constant access to the games.
So nothing right now in the proposal, there's nothing that there's a commitment that the BPS community also will have some sort of access to the leased space.
I don't think there's nothing official,
right
but I
now.
think
Okay.
like, as we talk, those would
Yeah.
be things from my seat
Okay.
that we'd push.
It's fine if it's not there now. I'm just asking. If not, I would encourage for that conversation to
Yeah,
happen.
and sorry, if I may clarify, there is, if you're talking about physical space
The
that's being leased
physical
to access,
space, yeah,
the
like,
answer to
can
that
they,
is yeah.
can they go there, walk around? Can they go see like, are they getting free tickets to see the game? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
know that the bench side, they'll be able to sit there, right? I'm talking about the actual facility, the infrastructure. Like, are our students, athletes also gonna have access to that?
Yeah, so in the agreements as they're coming together right now, there is limited access to not just BPS, but all community members to certain aspects of the west grandstand, which is being leased. So up here, we have a diagram of the proposed new facility and the breakdown of the space. You know, the first thing I'll highlight is a lot of the amenities that are going to be on the team side, you see front and center built into the BPS side. So
Yeah.
they will have new locker rooms, they will have a new grandstand, they will have community space, strength and conditioning area. But under the agreement, the way it works is the west grandstand is leased to the soccer team. But then there's a reciprocal license. And what that reciprocal license says is that basically any other time during the whole year, except for the times that the team is actually using the stadium for a game,
Right.
which is just 20 days out of the year and only for a certain part of that day for the game and some setup and tear down, that all of the entire grandstand itself and the stairs, so people who want to sit there, walk up and down, run the stairs, they'll have access to the West Grandstand, both the community and BPS, as well as any kind of concourse or stairs areas to access those facilities. Another important element of this is that we're not leasing the field to the team.
Mhm.
The city's retaining ownership and the whole interest of the field, and we're only letting the team license the field only for the games. So that soccer field and that new track, that's accessible, no restrictions to BPS, students, coaches, trainers, and the community all year, all hours of the year, except during the times that the team is using it for, games. And then we have a prioritization schedule in the lease and the stadium usage agreement. The kind of last tier priority is if it still fits in the calendar after taking into account all city events, BPS events, community events, then we'll also allow the team to have one practice per week before a game somewhere that it fits into the master calendar.
Thank you for that. My hope is throughout this process, and this has been ongoing, right? We're here now, is that this is being done with a lens of environmental justice. Because the stadium might look nice, but if around it is not looking nice, then the community didn't really gain anything. So I'm hearing what folks are saying, but I can't lie, I'm super excited to see a nice athletic facility, especially in my community. I live in Four Corners, it's not that far. And I'm excited to see graduations like Berg. We couldn't have graduation there this year because of the weather. But imagine if we have this done and we'll be able not only to see athletic sports and events, but even like celebrations. And we have so many families that can't even go to their kids' graduation because they're confined in their little auditoriums, the cafeteria, or whatever that is. So I know that wasn't really highlighted, but I know White Stadium was also utilized a lot for graduation celebrations. Again, it's just making sure that folks are being transparent throughout this process, hearing folks out. Not everybody's going to agree, but I hear people on like, if we're doing development, how is that going to impact everything else? And make sure that we're having a holistic conversation. But thank you for answering the questions in the presentation. Looking forward to see where this goes.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Go ahead. Dr. Elkins, then Mr. Tran.
Yes.
Okay.
So looking at the slide 6, I think it's slide 6, sample future week. So this is an example week of what it looks like with a soccer game. And I'm assuming that on a week without a soccer game, they're not practicing at all during that particular week. So then it becomes completely BPS, a community event. And so one question, how do requisitions for community events get processed?
And prioritized. Said and prioritize.
Yeah, and prioritize. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in our current situation, that's been probably an area that wasn't defined as well. As we enter into this, hopefully into this new stadium, I know we're looking to put together a committee, different stakeholders to be able to kind of evaluate those requests and give a decision in terms of what we're able to fit into what we have, and I think also understand the different impacts that the events have, and make appropriate decisions for the facility.
Yeah, and if I could just add on to that, something that Avery just briefly mentioned is a community advisory council. So what we're establishing here is something called the White Stadium Neighborhood Advisory Council. It will be comprised of different co-chairs such as the Parks and Recreation Department, BPS Athletics, and the Boston Unity Soccer Partners. But the body will be made up of community members, a parks advocate, and BPS students and staff. And the reason for this committee is to make sure that if there's any issues that arise at the stadium or any operational challenges, there's a mechanism for which those concerns can be uplifted. And Boston Unity and the city agencies can fix those concerns or address those issues. One of the things that this committee will help oversee is scheduling and prioritization of different events that want to happen at White Stadium. So they will look at the BPS schedules and the different community events who want to be there for a year and help make recommendations of which events should be scheduled when and at what times. So there's no conflict or overlap of events.
That makes sense. And then also with regard to transportation, obviously that's one of the biggest concerns from the adjacent community, immediately adjacent community that's there. I heard in the presentation and even before about shuttles and the development of shuttles. Shuttles from where exactly?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So as the plan prioritizes that there'll be no parking on site for game days, so they're prioritizing a multimodal approach, shuttles being one of those multimodal options. So currently there are 4 offsite shuttle parking lot locations. So the plan is that if you purchase a game ticket and you want to drive, you'd have to select one of those lots that you're going to. And then once you park your vehicle, you will take a shuttle with other people who drove to that lot to the stadium. Also, other than those 4 lots, there will be shuttles from Orange and Red Line stops. We're continuing to work with the MBTA on which stops will be used, but the current proposal is Jackson Square and Forest Hills. And so, working with the MBTA, there's definitely some alternative options that they've proposed and that we're looking at. But the conversations with them have been very productive. And so there will be shuttles from those satellite lots as well as MBTA services that will take you to the stadium. And just to clarify, there will be 2 shuttle routes. There'll be a northern route and a southern loop, just depending on which part of the city you are coming from.
Can I ask from this conversation?
Go ahead.
It's just more because it was from what you were asking, but I can wait. I can wait.
No, I was done with my.
And going back to the line of questions, thank you so much, Chair. In terms, where are these lots? Like, where's the lots that you're referring to? Like, if people are parking, have you all already identified those?
So the team is working on solidifying the contracts for those lots. They haven't been identified yet, but they have been identified in which areas of the city they're trying to capture folks from, depending on expected participation and which spectators will come from. So for instance, like I-93 South is an area that they're trying to capture spectators from, places on the northern part of the state as well. But those lots haven't been identified. But once we make those recommendations and continue to develop the transportation plan, while we refine the TAPA agreement, we will be sure to make those information public.
Are the shuttle routes, like for Four Corners in Geneva, for example, the commuter rail, are those being included on those routes too? Not just Red Line, Orange Line, but also the commuter?
Exactly. So that's what I meant by the ongoing conversations with MBTA.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. I think it's very thorough, and thank you for all the answers to my colleagues' questions. Many of those are fully explained and fully answered. I thank you. I understand that. Okay, the lawsuit. Well, first of all, lawsuits will result in our improvement in our making sure that the project is going to be successful and the project is going to be viable for everybody, I hope. And thank you for your answer on the issue of the will, because that was also one of my concern. The public process, I understand that everything has already been in compliance with whatever the procedural law requires. That, of course, a bunch of administrative agencies that are involved have already approved so far. That's good. And while I do understand the concern from the plaintiffs, well, for lack of a better word, from the plaintiffs side of the story, given the fact that their motion on the likelihood of success on the irreparable harm had already been addressed by the judge, so that does open our moving forward. And that's how it is. My concern, there are twofold. First of all, I don't understand how the Boston Public School has been surviving so far, given the fact that that stadium has not been ADA compliant. I understand that it's built 1945, but it's not a historical landmark and has never been sued for ADA compliance. I think that would have more of viability to succeed. But anyway, this is going to address that. The question I have right now, given the fact that we keep hearing privatization, and a layperson assuming that, for the first time I hear it, privatization does carry some political connotation that, hey, everything we wash our hand, you take it over. I would like you guys to make sure that this is not a privatization. It is a public-private partnership. The community need to hear that, because when I first hear privatization, of course, it does have legal connotation. We each have our own definition of privatization, but a layperson would think, oh God, this is, it's just on the political side. This does bring a lot of confusion and a lot of misunderstanding into the process. So the recommendation is that defeat that. Find way, I don't know, find way to defeat that connotation. This is not, again, a privatization. This is a partnership. Thank you.
Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead.
Just offhand, what is the, if you know, like, what is the anticipation of growth? And I guess you have to sort of know what is the growth of the interest within the soccer team itself, and where this is going. So where I'm going with this question is particularly, what is the commitment that we know that it remains, that this layout that you have here remains as it is, mostly BPS community oriented, especially as popularity with the team grows, which is what we're thinking and hoping, right? But I can anticipate a situation where the team comes back and says like, hey, we want to lease more of this stadium, and we want to your point about privatization, then it becomes slowly but surely the team owns more of it than the community does. And I think that's also a concern.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to tackle just the enforcement piece of that, because I think your question gets to the heart of how do we make sure these commitments stay intact over a period of time? And there may be kind of legal answers to this, but this graphic you see here and some of the other aspects on the slides, the city is going to great lengths to make sure that all of this is codified in very airtight legal agreements with the team that commit to this type of setup and this type of shared use of the stadium and the field for the entire lease term. Importantly, the lease isn't just, oh, we're going to lease this to you and the general provisions about the lease. So all these commitments around usage, prioritization of events, what is being leased, what are you allowed to use the stadium for, what access you need to give to the public and the city and the students to your side and all the other parts of the stadium. We're not just saying that in public presentations, it's all word for word in the agreements that the team will sign. That lease is for an initial 10-year period. And so they're locked into that. And then they have 2 additional 10-year renewal periods, but on the same terms of the original lease agreement. So for at least the next, could be anywhere between 10 and 30 years, this is the deal that the team is accepting, and this is the only deal that's on the table between the city and the team. That's what the legal agreement does, and it binds everybody to this setup that you see here in front of you today.
And so just to be clear, so the risk in that is that if after 10 years, the team doesn't want to necessarily do that, then essentially the community is left with having to maintain the upkeep for the entirety of the stadium. Just want to be clear about it.
If it is legally the case under the lease agreement that if after 10 years they choose not to renew, the entire stadium, including the team's investment in the stadium, that all reverts to city ownership. It's all city property. We can use it how we want to use it, but yeah, that'll obviously come with the obligation to maintain the entire stadium as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you to my fellow members for the questions, and gentlemen, thank you for your presentation this evening. Informative. I do note, Chief Irish, I think you read this, but this has been unanimously approved by the Zoning Commission, the Landmarks Commission, the Boston Civic Design Commission, the Boston Planning and Development Agency, and the Parks and Recreation Commission. And each of whom looked at it through various lenses, right? Based upon how does it fit with this? How does it fit with that? Areas of oversight that they have with the school committee. So my interest is going to be, what does this do for Boston Public Schools student athletes, right? And what is the best possible thing for our student athletes? And so one area I wanted to explore on, and thank you to fellow member Tron talking about the difference between privatization and partnership, because this truly, to me, is a partnership, particularly as council, as you laid out about, what would be in the lease. And it struck me one line in here, and I think it was almost glossed over, because I think about what are the benefits to having a team there, right? A women's soccer team that our student athletes can see up close. They can see them practice, they can see them play. And I saw this line in here about, let me find what I wanted to get, which is, right side, what's on either sides. Job, career, and mentorship opportunities with the focus on MWBE and local business and BPS students. Could we talk for a little bit, please, about, I assume this is coming from the team, right? So beyond just leasing and playing there, talk to me for a second about this job, career, and mentorship opportunities for BPS students.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak on that a little bit. So the Boston Unity soccer team has committed to providing internship and mentorship opportunities for our BPS students, as well as you mentioned, those summer jobs. And those are in various fields. So from working with the professional sports medicine people who are working with the professional women's team on athletic training, to those who are operating the AV and technology at the stadium. So really, a wide range of internship and mentorship and job opportunities for our students to teach them a variety of skills. And also another interesting part of this project that's a direct benefit for BPS students is that all of we mentioned the tree loss at the stadium or in the tree replacement, all of those, that wood will also be donated to the Madison Park Vocational Tech School on their wood shopping program. And they will be creating furniture that can go right directly back into Franklin Park. So also providing our students at the Madison Park School with different skills and resources that they can benefit their skill set.
Oh, and I'll never forget, my first job in 8th grade was walking up and down the aisles at BC Stadium selling Coke for the concessionaire. So I know a lot of our students get summer jobs. A lot of our students get summer jobs through Aramark at Fenway Park, and I think this would be a great opportunity for our students as well. But, I grew up in Jamaica Plain. I spent a lot of time in the park, and when I was a student athlete, the one year I played freshman football, it was on a dirt field at Clementi Field in the Fenway, right? And yet I was recently talking with a young student, female student athlete in BPS, and she plays soccer. And I said to her, well, did you hear about this women's soccer team? And she said, no. And I started to explain to her, and the eyes got this big. Like, you mean I may be playing on a field that the women's professional team is playing on? I mean, it was inspiring to see how excited she got by that opportunity, because I think this is a incredible opportunity for our students, not just the extra time, and Chief Isdale, you and I have spent a lot of time out at White Stadium together, right? We've seen how bad it is right now and how embarrassing it is. And yes, not ADA compliant. And that's only one side of the stadium. The other side, you can't even walk over to because it was fire damage years ago. So the opportunity for our BPS students is incredible. And yes, thank you, Ms. Lima Barbosa, pointing out we do need to be concerned about the impact of the community and make sure that it's listened to. But when I put the prism on of what this does for our BPS students, I'm incredibly excited by the opportunity. I do want to understand, Council, this probably is a question for you. In the request is that we authorize the superintendent to partner with the city to negotiate and enter into a lease. And it says specifically, and I just want to understand what this means, subject to the commitments contained in BUSP's technical and price proposals submitted June 26, 2023, and the Boston Plan Development Agency board memo dated July 18. So my question is, when it's saying subject to those two things, how does the superintendent ensure that BPS students, come out strong in this? I'm trying to think of a better way to phrase it. Our first priority, are the top priority in this.
Yeah. So and maybe it's helpful to talk about what those subject to documents are.
That's why I suspected saw it in there.
Sorry. So this is just it's a little, the reason it's got those subject is it's a little technical. So because we are leasing property that belongs to the city of Boston, it has to go through this Chapter 30B competitive procurement process. We can't just, the city can't just dispose of property. It has to go through it has to publish a request for proposals, outline the terms of the request for proposals, and then solicit proposals to those requests. And so when you then enter into a lease agreement, it has to be on terms that are the same or at least more favorable to the city than what was in the original request for proposals. And likewise, the team cannot backtrack on commitments it made in its technical proposal. When it submitted its technical proposal, that was the deal that we understood they were giving us. So now they have to stand by that deal. They can't now renegotiate aspects of the technical proposal. All of these commitments we're talking about today and kind of prioritizing BPS use, BPS student use, retaining control of the field and the track and the East Grandstand, those are things that were in the RFP to begin with. So that controls, that governs. And we worked hand in hand with BPS staff at the time to develop the RFP, by the way. So when we say subject to, we're going to enter into a lease, but it can't be on less favorable terms to the city than what was in the RFP and what was in Boston Unity's technical proposal and what was in their price proposal. Those are essentially set the floor for the city on what is acceptable in the lease. The last subject to is this Boston Planning and Development Agency board memo. Through the community process, and as we've talked about today, the team has made a number of commitments that are over and above what was in the technical proposal. Things like the tree bank, the $1 per ticket surcharge for investments in Franklin Park, things around noise, transportation, design of the stadium, things like that. Those are all documented in this BPDA board memo, which then later will turn into a cooperation agreement. So not only are we saying, okay, lease has to be compliant with the RFP and the proposals, but we also got to make sure all these mitigation measures and commitments that the team has made through that BPDA process, they also find their way into the lease and the accompanying documents.
So by us authorizing the superintendent to enter into lease negotiations subject to these provisions, it is covering all the promises or commitments that have been made to date and changes, including basically everything in this presentation, right?
That's exactly
So
right.
None of these are nice to have or hope to have.
Yeah, everything you've
the
seen in this
commitments.
presentation appears in one or more of the agreements between the city and the team.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think I have I have several concerns, but I think one thing, particularly living in the community, I don't live near Franklin Park, but grew up my whole life going to Franklin Park and remembered when the only way we used to get to Franklin Park was by going on the bus. And now trying to drive to get to the other side of the Arborway, trying to drive through Franklin Park, understanding how all of this has changed just on a day-to-day basis, wondering about, I understand there's 20 game days, but the question is beyond those 20 game days and all of the other activity, city plus school, what are the other disruptions to the community? Basically, I wonder also when I think about what goes on at Gillette and the communities, and I mean, they're a mega of 45,000 people trying to get there, but understanding what that kind of disruption is to those communities for the sake of having this wonderful entity amongst them. But also thinking about the city of Boston and who lives nearest to the park. And as we think about our city and the reality of the gentrification of our city, and there are fewer and fewer places that people who have lived in this community for generations still live, that being one of the areas. How are we really being both fair, sensitive, and honest with the community about and hearing, because I understand we've had 50 meetings, lots of people have come, and there are people completely on opposite sides of these issues in terms of both the overall benefit to Boston Public Schools and humanity, but the true impact it will have on their day-to-day living experience. Will I be able to get home? Will I be able to get out of my house to go elsewhere? What will this look like? Because I can't imagine, as I know now how I access coming, across Humboldt Avenue to come into the area, going down that very narrow pathway. How will all of that change? Both and then thinking about all of the housing that is literally built right on top of that current access and entrance, because this was done 100 years ago. Those houses have been there for a very long time when our city was conceived of being a very different place than it is today. And, it's like plunking down a major something, right? Smack dab in the middle of your neighborhood. I can understand the concerns.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that question. And I'm also one of those neighbors who lives, like I said, on both sides. I grew up on the Seaver Street side, and now I'm on the American Legion Highway side. So I'm also personally connected to this. I will start, and then I think Luke can probably jump in, because we've probably had more than 50 meetings, meeting with anyone who wants to meet, whether it be an individual, small group, meeting with the church, the Beret Church on Seaver Street, just to really understand people's concerns and make sure we're thoughtfully including them in a plan. The plan for transportation, I would say a couple of big things about it is, one is that we are very car reliant. For example, last weekend we had about 30,000 people in Franklin Park, and there was no real transportation plan. So I think this is an opportunity for us to rethink how we get people in and out of Franklin Park in a more sustainable and in a less impactful way for community. And that's what we're trying to do. And the model that we're using is based on large events that happen when there is no parking available at those events. I can't remember the name of the exact PGA tournament that happened in Brookline a few years ago. That was a great example that developed a transportation plan for a place that had no parking, right? And we also know that Fenway Park is another great example where the majority of people who are going to a game there, they can't expect to drive and park there. So we're using bits and pieces from different things, and also connecting with community to make sure that we're developing a plan that focuses on public transportation, that focuses on multimodal transportation, and also on environmentally friendly shuttle services to get people in and out. And we also want to use that as a roadmap for other large events that are happening in the park, to make sure that those also have a plan. Nope.
Yeah, I could just add in on a little bit of that. So the PGA tour that Chief Irish is mentioning is actually at the Brookline Country Club. And so the Brookline Country Club doesn't have any parking. And so, as he mentioned, there's roughly, thousands of spectators are trying to get in and out, which is where this plan has been adapted from. That plan prioritizes the shuttle services as well, which is the basis for the plan for White Stadium. Something else that I'd like to highlight is that through our community engagement process, we heard that many events at Franklin Park today have major transportation impacts on the neighbors, such as the BAA half marathon. So we've been working closely with the BAA and other large events to provide them insights on our proposal to really try to better manage, transportation impacts in Franklin Park as well. And I'd just like to highlight a couple key elements of the proposal. The first is that on certain areas and residential streets around the park, will be limiting to only residential vehicle access only and the shuttle services. So for instance, on Walnut Ave, oftentimes people try to cut through the residential streets to beat the traffic in Eggleston Square. And so what we're doing there is we're making Walnut Ave residential only. So, we've taken for game days, obviously. And so for game days, Walnut Ave will be residential only. And through a traffic analysis, currently there's roughly around 600 to 650 cars on Walnut Ave every hour. And so with these restrictions in place, we'd actually be only having 150 vehicles on Walnut Ave. So drastically decreasing the traffic on those residential streets. Another thing about this proposal that is really trying to protect residential parking around the neighborhood is an implementation of a game day RPP, or residential parking program. So this is something that's similar to what's in place up in Chestnut Hill for the BC football games. How it will work is if you live within the walk shed zone, which is 1.2 miles radius around the stadium, one of those residential streets, your car is registered to one of those houses, you'll be eligible for an RPP sticker. That sticker would just go on your vehicle, and then when BTD is doing their enforcement on game days, you would be preserved. And so that's really protecting the residential streets from people trying to park and clog up those streets. We're also protecting visitors by providing a visitor placard for those houses as well.
And I think the only other place, as we look at it from our space, the architects, and as we look at the designs and thinking about how we program the stadium, our traffic needs are part of that conversation, right? So we're talking about, obviously we have the biggest event, which could be an event that brings in 10,000 people, but what happens when we have a soccer game on a Tuesday afternoon between two BPS teams? What kind of traffic is that driving, and what is our plan to kind of deal with that? So I think as we're able to define the uses of the stadium and what we anticipate the spectators to be, we'll better be able to understand the impacts and how we plan for it. And I think hopefully we get ourselves in a spot where we have a plan for a small event, a medium event, and a large event that we know we can go to and that will work, that everybody can be aware of as they're coming to. I think that the other piece is we're also making sure we're staying in contact with parks. Obviously, the Franklin Park Action Plan has been a big part of this, but making sure that they're kind of on board and understand the different programming that we're looking at, and that we're working together to make sure that it all works for everybody involved.
Great, thank you. Does anyone, go ahead.
Luke, you talked about the residential parking for game day. How are we communicating to the non-residents? Are there going to be signage as well? Because if I live on Walnut, is residential, I get my sticker, but then my friend from Canada comes visit me. I don't remember it's a game today because I'm not, you know what I mean? So how are we going to inform the non-folks so they don't get their car towed? And just a question, if it's not there, I think that's something to think about.
No, I think that's a great point. And so I'm sure everybody's aware, everything is now digitalized, right? So, purchasing your ticket is no longer in person. It's all via phone. So the team will be doing extensive communication, letting people know that you're not allowed to park on site. So when you purchase your ticket, you'll have to select which mode of transportation you'll be getting to the stadium with. So if it's a vehicle, you would have to select which satellite parking you'd be going to.
Are there any other?
It still doesn't communicate to folks that didn't buy the ticket though. Like I'm talking about the audience that's not going to the game and they park on one. I'm not talking about me going to the game. So that's just to clarify my question.
Yeah. And I think most likely that'll be with the posting. We normally do like 48 hours ahead of time. But there's still details of these things that are gonna be worked out because no one solution is a perfect fit. Like it has to be customized and modified, and then even after it's operationalized, we need to like monitor it and make improvements. But I think we're on a path towards a plan that I think will be a better condition than we currently have.
I agree that residents needs to be priority. They should have their spot first, but I also want to be, thinking about the folks that are not from the area and they're just parked there. But Chief, you brought up a point. There is already in practice of postage that even when you're moving out, you got to put that no parking during this day. So that is also a good practice that we could probably do that for game day. Thank you, Chair.
Any last questions before we?
Question, are all Unity games only on Saturday?
No.
Okay, so. No, so I'm also thinking about how, or have you, I'm just thinking about surrounding Franklin Park immediately, right? So obviously like Brook Charter School comes to mind on the American Legion side. And then you have the Hernandez, which sits on the other side, right?
School Street.
So like School Street right there. So also, how have you all thought about the timing of this disrupting things like let out for school? And yeah, I primarily I'm thinking of let out for schools and things like that for families. Yeah, I mean it's all it's like school buses, like essentially like what conversations have you had with BPS transportation at this point, and even though I'm just listing those two school communities off the top of my head, right, that are going to be affected, particularly as things occur during the week. Right.
I'll start off and then Luke can jump in, but we really can't even speak specifically to like BUSP's like schedule, right? Because we're talking maybe in general about NWSL schedules and from what we've seen around the country, but each schedule needs to really be built around the availability of the stadium. For example, like with the Celtics and the Bruins, they just can't, they have to schedule around each other. So we have like city events that we know we're gonna have that are important to us. And we have days when the stadium is not available. So a schedule will have to be built around availability. And also, we've seen most of the games for other teams are on a weekend. We've seen some Saturday, some Sunday. I've seen, I think, a Wednesday game, but it could have been a holiday, that led to that particular game. So there are different factors that will have to be inputs into building out a schedule.
Yeah, and sorry, Super.
No, go ahead.
No, I would just also like to add that it's all based primarily on like broadcasting schedules as well. So the impact of like school timing on a weekday is probably not likely due to the games being broadcasted later at night. And also just want to, maybe I can pass it to Sammy here, but there's also commitments around like the end times of games and commitment times around when the stadium would be turned over to Boston Unity as well. So there are commitments built into the lease around timing and usage, if you're interested.
This is probably my Boston competitiveness coming out, but is there a playoff season?
For the NWSL?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is, but that's built into those 20 games.
It is, okay.
Yeah, so it could be, the season could be less than 20 games, because the 20 games include.
I see, so that's the
playoffs.
max. No, not if, when.
Sorry. Okay.
But the 20 is the maximum.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So are we? Okay. Again, thank you all, and the committee looks forward to taking action on this recommendation at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Now we turn to public comment.
No public comment.
Thank you. Okay, new business? The only new business that I just want to remind folks is that you will be hearing from us in the next week with some, looking at, to try to establish a date for a retreat in late September, early October. And next week is the first day of school, so hopefully people will get their pencils and sign up to go to greet new ones. All right, and don't forget, next Friday is the Countdown to Kindergarten celebration at the Children's Museum, 4:30 to 7:30.
This Friday?
No, not
Next Friday.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Next Friday.
Right,
Oh, gosh.
the 6th. Okay, that's it. All right, our next hybrid school committee meeting will take place in person on Wednesday, September 11th at 6 p.m. here at the Bowling Building. Is there a motion to end this meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
There was a person on Zoom that wanted to speak earlier. I didn't know if you were gonna have the second comment period. She wasn't able to. She did register, but
there.
she
No,
wasn't,
There when I called.
she wasn't available the first time, but
No,
she was
they're two
registered.
separate periods. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Is there any objection to approving the motion by unanimous consent? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all and have a good night.